May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, reject, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, osaya anakitoya. Kamsamida. I see you. Manut, Habarigani, Aquaba, etc. Jambo, Bimini Kofi, Nina Farako, Kutana Nwewe. Bakwatav, Shalom, Barakalad, Sham Yahava, Tedah Yashvel, Kwam Yashvel, Tedah, Bat Atban, at Yashvel, Kofi, Kohelet of Servant of Christ, Mashalom Hey. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voices and speaking the unspoken. Grand rising to you. Appreciate your presence. I'm playing a little hurt today, so forgive me. I do pretty well at making sure that we are treating people with respect. But if you see some grimaces here or there and stuff like that, please charge it just to the situation, not to my heart. My knee is, for lack of a better word, jacked up and has been recovering. I thought I was almost a full recovery, and then basically yesterday ended up having a little bit of issue with it and ended up falling down the first part of the steps and landed in a really precarious situation. Or not yesterday, a few days ago, whatever it was. So I've been doing my best. So I am doing what I should. I wanted to try and stand up and do everything. And I did a little bit of it after I'd messed up my knee the other day and really jacked up, and then on top of that, had to make a hospital visit and didn't turn out so well. So I'm playing a little hurt physically and psychologically, but we're gonna get this in. But thank you guys for being on. We appreciate you. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Just asking for your prayers for family, stuff like that, for normal, just stuff that everybody goes through. And just asking that you lift us up. Can't give particulars and everything. Sometimes stuff is just for family, and you got to have permission to say what's going on with family. But just wanted to say that I thank you guys for being on and asking for you, as our ancestors used to say, those of you who know the words of prayer. Amen. If you don't mind putting a couple up for us. Hallelujah. But how's everybody doing? How you doing on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok? Those will join us on the podcast later on. Hopefully we'll have another YouTube channel up later. We might even do a little kind of slide in, drive-by / situation. Maybe I shouldn't say those words. Do a impromptu live on the original channel on TikTok a little later, and put it on Patreon for the fam to be able to go back and look at it some other time. But we appreciate you so very much, and we honor you guys so very much, and we thank you. And we'll make something up for the Patreon that we were supposed to do on Tuesday as well. But we appreciate you again. Thanks for being on, everybody. Shalom. How's everybody doing? How you doing, Sister Beverly? How you doing? Oh, I'm sorry. As always, we give all honor and praise to the Most High. We also give all honor and praise to the Most High for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. And her TikTok channel is back up and running now. Praise God. So you can go check her out. We don't know we do kind of know what happened to make it to where we need to pick up. Feel free to follow her on Bloom and Flourish and Bloom and Flourish too. But I'm thankful and grateful for everything that she's doing for the community so very much. So let's go ahead and get into this. I'm gonna try and pump myself up a little bit. I am hurting a little bit in my leg and stuff, which is why I'm seated today, but it is what it is. But hopefully you guys will be able to get something out of today. Let's say hello to everybody real quick before we jump in. How are you doing, Sister Beverly? Once again, how are you doing, Sister Denise? Sister Tori, Dwayne, Sister Snett, Brother Stephen. Hello, how you doing? Minister Samantha Ray, Shabbos, how you doing? I apologize. Give me a second. I'm trying to catch up on these names. Talk with Toya. How are you doing? At some point, we're gonna have to have some communication. I feel a lot of stuff that you teach, a lot of stuff that you live by and you put out there is positive to a lot of people out there. Appreciate you. Matter of fact, I don't know if I follow you on TikTok or not, but just in case I don't, let me go ahead and do that. Okay, I think, we follow each other. Okay, looks like we do. Amen. How you doing, Kate Sparta? Okay, underscore part, Sparta. I think I saw Ratchet on there. Yosef, Sister Sherry. Hola, mami, how you doing? Sister Deja, hello to you. And if Brother Destin is running around, how are you doing? Thank you, Big Roy. Appreciate you. How you doing? Spike me too. Sister Monica, Coco, Renee, Sage, Angie, Sister Tracy. Okay, I see you switched over. How you doing, Sister Irena? Kia, Clarence, everybody. Marky, we appreciate you. Hey, Burke Job, is it? Hopefully I said that correctly. How you doing? And yes, that's what our aim is to tell the truth, preach the truth. Oh, you said Habari Ghana. Hello, how are you doing? Book of Asia. Thank you. Tada. Right? Hopefully you guys will be able to kusikaliza, excuse me, and be able to catch what's going on today. My mindset and goal today is to continue this series. That we've been doing called "The System is Sus." Forgive me, give me a second, y'all. We're talking about this series, "The System is Sus." That's what we've been discussing the whole time. And in this series, we've talked about a lot of different things. It's on our YouTube channel. If you're not familiar with it, this series has been going on for some weeks. I feel like it's about at least 3 weeks or so. But we've got all of everything recorded that we do, all the series we do. You just have to look on the playlist and look up "This System is Sus." That's the name of the series. And also, we're going to talk about today specifically evolution. So moderators, I bow down. I appreciate y'all. To the ministerial staff, to SOC, if it's your first time, one time a minute. If you're just friends, if you're just y'all, if you graft in, if you just want to be a great human being, we appreciate your presence. If you have questions, feel free to have questions on here. We do have to be honest with you up front that we have moderators for a reason. TikTok is always trying to take stuff down that we do. People are always trying to lie on different things that we have. And also we have people of different ages and different things on here. So we ask in the comment section, or even if you do try to chime in, via video, we ask that you all, just at least be respectful of that. Feel free to question whatever you want. Questioning just for the sake of questions not really going to do much for you. And because, well, first of all, we might not be able to give you much if you're not listening to it. This is coming from a very cultural perspective and everything that we do. How you doing, Sister Deborah? Right? How you doing, Sister Linda? This comes from a cultural perspective. And thank you, Big Sis, Minister Samaya Lorraine. I try to make sure I respect everybody. Sometimes I just want to call you by your first name and be respectful. I know that's not your thing. That's my thing. But yes, so I just want you guys to know that everything we do is cultural. So when we talk about evolution, we have to come from a cultural perspective. Now, this is something that is missing 9 times out of 10 when you have people who have this conversation about evolution, right? A lot of people who are arguing about evolution, you have a problem with this evolutionary context and concept because people don't want to admit that everything that we're dealing with is cultural. There's a culture that presents this. How you doing, Black Steel? It's not random. This is not somebody is like, for example, somebody will say that you have a religion, which, by the way, the word religion simply means a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. It's actually religion. Now we say religion, but it's actually religion. And if you know how Middle English and Ancient English work, what we call the letters I and E are interchangeable one with another. They can just flip-flop, right? Which is why you'll see live and life and live, you'll see stuff like love, live, life, because the letter O and the letter I are interchangeable. The letter V and the letter F are interchangeable. So that's not actually like just a random thing or something that's a motivational thing only. That's actual etymology, and somebody put it in front of you. So same thing with this, is evolution is not a random thing. And if we don't recognize the culture that goes with this stuff, we're going to have a hard time having any kind of conversation. How you doing, Sister Latoya? Praise y'all for you, right? So if we're not honest about what this stuff is and the culture it comes from, we can't have conversation. So one thing you're going to hear about somebody who's a creationist from somebody who's an evolutionist, the evolutionist will say that the creationist is simply just being religious, and religion is the bane of man's existence. That's what we'll do, right? But both are based off of your faith, right? How you doing, Pip? Pip _N_J, Pip and J, Pip and Jordan, I guess. How you doing? Thanks for being part of the community. Right. And thank you for all of your gifts and your shares, your likes, all those great things you guys even do behind the scenes to help us to be able to make what we have to do function and flourish and grow. We appreciate you. Right. So hear what I'm saying and hear it very carefully. Hear what I'm saying and hear it very carefully. How you doing, J Mac? And okay, Islam. I don't know if that's a way of saying hello, but how you doing, Blue Dude? And how you doing? She travels. So when you hear somebody say, they say evolution is scientific, and they say creation is not, we're having a very dishonest conversation. Right? How you doing, son of God? Peace be upon thee in the name of Yahshua Mashiach. Right? So when somebody's saying evolution, what they're trying to say is you have no scientific bearing, which is not true. Now, are many of us people in our culture, even people who say they're of this culture and of this belief system, how you doing, Sister Nadine? Is it true that many of us don't recognize how to make sure that we can tell people why we believe what we believe, and therefore it can come off as so mystical that it's not practical? For sure. Right? How you doing, Hebrew? How you doing, Rufus? Right? That's very true. Right? But we have to be honest about the fact that the creationist and the evolutionist, if you will, both have faith. Okay, well, once again, I was talking about if that's your way of saying hello. Islam is my brother, so I don't have arguments about that, right? The more you learn about Yashla, you'll actually learn a lot about the more you, well, let's say it like this, the more you learn about Isaac, the more you learn about Ishmael, right? Or Ishmael, right? So I'm not I'm not here to do that today, right? But I appreciate your presence. So when we have this stuff, see, you can see even in that we've had it like bred in us. Unfortunately, we've gotten taken away from our nature, and we have so much stuff that causes us to fight that we're not even getting to the issue. How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? Right. So when we talk about specifically evolution and creation both have times where they have to deal with faith, and they both have times where they have to deal with science. Right, and both influence the other. How you doing, Sister Lenora? Or I'm sorry, Lenora. I'm not. I think it's Sister Lenora, right? Yeah. You said that's incorrect etymology. It's Latin. Religiare means to rebind. Okay. Well, that's what people who are trying to say and stuff now, as far as things like that. And maybe you can even talk about when it started to have more prominence, when people started to use that term more recently. Right. But even if you want to talk about it from a place of rebinding, okay, so to rebind, it wasn't always a negative thing, even when you're talking about, because you're talking about more so around the time of like Middle English when we're referring to that word, and how English and even French people are trying to talk about that word. But if we're going to talk about the original, the origin, right? Not recent, because remember, Latin is something that goes back to the Greeks are using some Latin, and the Romans definitely are using Greek and Latin, and using some of the stuff from the Etruscans, Kemetic people, etc. So we're having different conversations. We could talk about different time period, right? But once again, I'm going to be honest and say up front, this is cultural perspective. So if you're coming from a cultural perspective, or you're coming from a perspective that says that what we want something to be now is more important than what it was in its origin, then that's totally fine, right? Because legion was at one point, once again, the letter E, the letter I are interchangeable. That's why you don't say religion. A lot of y'all don't say religion. A lot of y'all, or I'm sorry, you say religion now, but a lot of people don't even realize some of you say religion or something close to that, depending on where you come from, right? That's dealing with the language that you're dealing with. That's also dealing with which letter somebody said. It's like when somebody spells believe. Look up believe in ancient English. It's not spelled the same way that you spell it now. The I and the E can be changed. Sometimes the I is there, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the E is there, sometimes it's not. Sometimes belief actually means believe, because believe in the letter V and belief, the letter F and V are interchangeable. See, so I'm talking about an origin. I don't wrestle against flesh and blood. I wrestle against principalities, origins, right? And if I'm going to be honest about something, once again, can you see why this becomes a difficult subject matter? Because what we're doing is, and I'm not saying people are doing this strictly dishonest, but if something's not the truth, then it's not honest. Now, more people nowadays would say, well, honesty is really if you know better. Right? The truth is the truth. You can be ignorant of something, right? And somebody said, well, you're not being dishonest, you're just ignorant. No. Like, if you're not careful, ignorance takes us into a place of dishonesty, right? So I've got to be honest about it. How you doing, Auntie Marion? If I didn't say sorry, how you doing, big sis? So I've got to be honest with you, right? And I've got to come back to like what this stuff is. Like even like when you talk about the letter A, to be honest, why don't you talk about the letter Aleph? We'll talk about the letter B. Why don't you talk about the character bit? Excuse me. We don't talk about the letter C. Why don't we talk about the character Gamal? If we're going to talk about the letter D, why don't we talk about the character Dalit? If we're going to talk about the letter E, why don't we talk about the character He? Right? Because we're ignorant of some things. Not because we're I'm trying to say I'm better than somebody else. He said that's why you can't get up with the I before E except at the C. And by the way, I looked up something a long time ago on that. I forget, but I forget how many words. It's something crazy. Let me just be safe. I think it's like in the hundreds, but let me just be safe. There's like tens of words that have that I before E thing, and it's not I before E except at the C. And that's not even necessarily a rule because more times it's going to be that's not going to be the rule than is the rule. So even in that, right, we're talking about stuff and we put stuff as truth that's not necessarily truth, even in etymology or in simple spelling of words. Except after Raleigh, right? There's a whole bunch of words out there that don't follow. There's a heavy majority of words that do not follow that rule. But when you were in school, what did they tell you? I before E. Now, if we be honest, maybe the limited vocabulary they wanted you to have, or the limited words they focus on spelling in their program for you, their culture, once again, then sure, like that might actually work for you to pass a test. But that's not how regular language works. So when somebody's talking about this stuff, we have to be honest, right? And go back to the beginning. It's like when people say, well, there's no such thing really as a spirit. Or there's no such thing as a soul. Let's go with that one. People that say you guys are just making up stuff about the soul. Soul's not really there. We've proven what soul is. Well, that's not true because you don't want to tell the truth about words. What is the original word for soul in the Greek? Since that's what a lot of people like to use, the Greek and the Latin. Well, if you're going to talk about the original word for soul, you have to spell it out. Psyche. What does that spell? It spells out psyche. Psyche. Same for neighbors. Yeah, I see you. Psyche. So your psyche is your soul. But somebody whose religion or somebody whose mindset or somebody whose culture is to try and get rid of anything that might be a threat to them will change the definition of a word. But if I want to look up the word psyche, I have to talk about the soul. So if I'm talking to somebody who doesn't believe in the soul, but we're trying to talk about a psychological evaluation of something, how can we do that honestly? Are you catching it? Just think about it, right? If I am trying to talk to somebody honestly about your psychology, and the logia is the logic of or the study of, right? How can we study somebody's psyche if we won't be honest about the fact that we got to study somebody's soul? We have a problem. You see how it becomes difficult? We have a problem here. I would love to be able to get into a psychological evaluation, but you won't admit to the soul. And if we admit to the soul, then we have to get to another term, pneumatical thought. Now, how can we talk about the pneuma, P-N-E-U-M-A, if we want to admit to you that the pneuma is the stoic thought that marries the soul, the body, and the spirit together? That is not me talking about a concordance. That's me talking about you can look up that word. It is the Stoic thought that marries the soul, the body, and soul together. So when you see the word mind in a Septuagint or a Greek version of the Bible, and that's what a lot of people in English and other languages now are using, is something coming out of the Greek version of the Bible. The Greeks actually looked at the original Avra or Hebrew Bible, Hebrew culture, the Hebrew scrolls, and they looked at what they had to say. So the Greeks, when they're using that word, right, and they're talking about the mind, they're talking about your mind is different than your brain. You said, what does that mean for people that pass away as far as what, your soul? I don't comprehend what the question is even going towards. If you can help me out, if you can make it more, on the button or give me more direction with that, because I don't exactly comprehend the question. If you're saying that people who die, then do they have psychology? Well, as far as, once again, our cultural perspective, then yes, you would have psychology and you would have a spirit when you would pass on. Right? To be absent from the body, the soul is what ties the body and the spirit together. Sin causes you to need to be separated from that nastiness of what your flesh is turning into, so that you can have a glorified body. So to be absent from the body, the soul is tied to the body, body withers away, soul and spirit go back together to the Most High to be present with the Lord, and then he will give you a glorified body that you might be able to be with him in paradise forever. So culturally speaking, that's something for us. But once again, people want to be disingenuous about the words. It's ultimately what I'm getting to. And how you doing, Yellow Girl? Thanks for being on. Amen, Sister Monica. I see you. Right? And so nobody's teaching us this. Nobody's showing us this. Nobody's even saying maybe we should talk about this. And thank you for the love. Appreciate you. Right? Like maybe we should have conversation about why is it that nobody's talking about these words. See, when we say something evolves, right? Like, watch this. What does the word volve mean? There's involve, there's devolve, there's evolve, right? Which is what do these terms mean? Right? If I say something volves, if I say something is to volve, see, we don't even know what that means. Because we have to ask ourselves, if it evolves, then it has to evolve, doesn't it? So what does it mean to volve? Volve actually means to ponder or to mull over. In our culture, we would call that, we might even say that it's sheen or shine. To volve, to ponder or to mull over, to think about, to go through a process, to allow something to go inside and outside of our mind, to siphon through thoughts, right? You play music, you have vowels close to it, not quite the same thing, but close to the same meaning, right? But to volve, to mull over something. So to evolve, right? You're having a conversation with somebody that's telling you that evolve means that something has changed. By the way, there's 6 types of evolution, if you didn't know that. There are actually 6 types of evolution. But to evolve is somebody trying to tell you that something has begun to think for itself, and something has begun to think for itself and to determine its own outcome out of what it thinks. That's ultimately what they're trying to get you. See, to be involved is really to say, like, I mull over something to the point to where I want to get into it. To devolve should say that my thought process actually gets further away. What they're trying to say, they added the letter E. They're trying to tell you to evolve, right? Like to merge is what? To merge is to bring something together. But to emerge means that out of those things that were together, something comes out of it. So they're trying to say that to evolve is we were all together, but something should be coming out of what was all together. Right? You see what I'm saying? To ponder, to mull over something, to chew it up, to sheen, to go through it. You're having a conversation and we don't even know what it means. And what people are thinking it means, they're thinking that it just means, there was this type of fish, and out of this type of fish came that type of fish. But that's not exactly what we're saying. That's why there's even something called intelligent design. How you doing, Sister Laura? That is why there is even something called intelligent design. Have you ever heard of intelligent design and what that means? Not just that something with intelligence can design a car. No, they say that there's a thought process out of evolution that says that there is intelligent design. What do they mean when they say that? How you doing, Dennis? Thanks for being part of the community, right? What do they mean when they say intelligent design? Now, they would say that there's no creator. What they say is the universe got so smart that it designed itself. That's what they say. But that's ultimately coming out of evolution, evolve, to come out of something where we were all together as one. Something must be superior to something else. There must be thought behind life to evolve it. Well, some people who go there, but that comes out of the concept of what? That actually comes out of Charles Darwin's concept. Charles Darwin went to school to be a preacher, right? Like you guys know, that's what Charles Darwin went to school for. And he went in as a bachelor. Now, I know it's not technically bachelor's degree, it's baccalaureate, right? But he went to get a bachelor's degree. The reason you call it a bachelor's degree is because basically men were supposed to go to school and they didn't necessarily learn there. You went there, maybe some people took advantage and went to class and stuff. But a lot of them, they just kind of hung out. That's why a lot of people go to college and say, you got to have a college experience. You got to party. You got to live your life, right? If you don't live your life, what are you doing out here? No, Charles Darwin definitely, at least at that point, but also too, Charles Darwin not only is not an atheist, because we could say, well, maybe he started off as a Christian, got to school, he started playing around with microscopes, and then his family, when they paid for his degree to be, to be clergy, he then decided that he was going to go ahead and stop believing in any higher power. Problem with that is, though, is that evolution, at least if you're dealing, I get it. There's other forms of thought besides Charles Darwin on evolution. Let us be honest, though. Many of us are going off of a Darwinistic version of evolution. Right? Let's just keep it above. I'm not saying that he's the only version, but let's be honest. Most people who I'm going to get in the conversation with, you are not talking about anything outside of Charles Darwin. And we'll go further today, talk about Carl Linnaeus, right? Because we must bring up Carl Linnaeus. You guys know who Carl Linnaeus is, right? When it deals with evolution. And I'm not saying this is the only thing we're going to talk about dealing with evolution, but we've got to be honest. Who is Carl Linnaeus? Do you know? Thank you for the love. Right? Do you know who Carl Linnaeus is? Because you can't talk about Charles Darwin's book, his main book that got him the esteem that everybody still gives him to this day, and not mention Carl Linnaeus. See, if you don't see what I'm saying, like the system is sus. They're telling you to believe in something, and then there's a lot of side effects that come in when you modify what's going on. Oh, give me a chance. I'll give you Carl Linnaeus. Matter of fact, if you want to look up, let me explain Carl Linnaeus, and then I'll show you the title of Charles Darwin's book to show you how to put these things together. And then go look up Carl Linnaeus in your own time. They try to soften who he is now, but I'm just going to give you things, and you tell me when you go looking for it. You tell me. You tell me if I'm wrong. Okay. So I'm going to tell you where to go. Right. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to give you what receipts to look for. And then when you look at those receipts, you tell, because they're going to soften it up for you. Right. But I'm going to just give you, right. So Carl Linnaeus is somebody who came up. I won't say he came up with it, but he's somebody who popularized the theory of race. Hey, how you doing, Clemis? Thank you so much. I don't know how to pronounce this. I don't know how you pronounce like Cremus, Clemis, one Clemis. Please forgive me. But thank you for being on. Thank you for the love. So Carl Linnaeus is the one who gave you this whole thing when you talk about the white race, the black race, the Asian race, right? You think of that because of Carl Linnaeus. You catch that? You think of that because of Carl Linnaeus. Now, Carl Linnaeus is somebody who looked at animals and said that they had competition one against another, because that's ultimately what race is supposed to be. How you doing, Tamaya? Right? Race is a competition. My son, who is well aware of how social constructs work, also is somebody that if I were to tell him, hey, what do you think about race? He would say, oh, you want to run against each other? Because that's ultimately what race means, right? Is a competition. On your marks, get set, go, right? And then you race. It's a competition. So what he started to say is, well, animals have competition against each other. They have race. So there's animal races. Before there was a such thing as a human race, there were animal race. We don't talk about animal race anymore. Now we say animal species, but in Charles Darwin's book, which we'll get into in a second, species and race are words that are interchangeable. How you doing, DJ Alec? How you doing, Mr. Biscuits? They're interchangeable one with another. So race and species are the same thing. So if you say there's one human race, you're saying there's one human species. And I won't argue with you on that, right? But I'm just trying to say we don't know what race is or where it came from. Race is a competition, right? Ask your 3-year-old about a race. They don't know that you're talking about black versus white. They don't know you're talking about what tribe does somebody come from. Matter of fact, that's technically not race anyways. Right? But if you go down further, what Carl Linnaeus does is then he takes it from the animal race and he says, well, humans are in competition as well. This is when you start having some problems that are going to appear. When you have an evolutionary mind, a lot of you have a mind of competition. How you going to overcome her? See, this is why you have the Greco-Roman mindset that allows you to still be into these gladiatorial games more so than into studying who you actually are. So you can tell me more about Scottie Pippen versus Michael Jordan versus LeBron James, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, if he's better than the Big O. You can tell me if Alex Rodriguez was better than Derek Jeter, or vice versa. You can tell me about if Tom Brady is the GOAT, but how close is Pat Mahomes coming? You can give me all these different things, right? You can tell me, I don't know. Forgive me. I don't know who's on the Real Housewives, so you're gonna have to give me that. But maybe you can tell me about Shaq's wife and what she means to the community versus Kim Kardashian. You can tell me about, you know what I'm saying? You can tell me about those things, right? This is just stuff you can Google, right? This is just stuff on Google right here. There's actually other ones that I have on here. We might use some of them, we may not. We're definitely going to use another one in a second, right? But I'm just trying to tell you that in all these things that we're talking about, we don't know what these words mean. So Carl Linnaeus said that race was a competition between animals, therefore there's animal races, right? And then he said that there's not only that, but then there's breakdowns of animal races within races. There are sub races. So there's, you have fowl or birds, but there's different types of birds. So now you have a sub race of bird, right? There might be an eagle, but then there also can be a vulture. Right? They both kind of are out in the same thing, but there's eagles and there's vultures. But then out of eagles, there's this type of eagle and that type of eagle and this. And basically, it's a fancy way of saying, as I continue to name these things, right? Because that's what Adam did in the beginning. He actually already named all his animals. Somebody else comes along and says, I'm going to name them, and I'm not going to name them the image of the Most High. I'm going to name them what I call them and what I want them to be. And therefore, whatever I tell you it is, it must be that. And I will call that a species or a race. And this is how they compete. And interestingly enough, all the stuff that they did was based off of stuff that doesn't even make sense. I won't say all, but a lot of things. For example, they'll say it's survival of the fittest. In your mind, you think survival of the fittest means you must be able to outdo somebody else. But survival of the fittest is talking about a race or a species that's supposed to outdo another species. That is what they are talking about. If you don't believe that, look, deer do not try to off each other. However, deer do better in herds. So survival of the fittest for a deer is to make sure they come together. That's how their species or their race. That's how they use that term. Not the term I made up. That's how they use it, right? And moderators, I'm bowing down today. I'm depending on y'all because I know there's gonna be some people coming up with some wild stuff today, right? Yeah. How you doing, Austin? How you doing, Sister Austin? Right. So when you're talking about this race or this species, that's what they're talking about. But then, like I said, he said, well, what about human beings? Human beings, they must have a race as well. And human beings must come from animals because they have animalistic behavior. And since they have animalistic behavior, then they have races. And so which race is better than somebody else's race? Because they're all in competition. And so Carl Linnaeus, being somebody who was part of, and I'm using colonial and social terms, he was somebody who was part of the white race. And so as part of the white race, they went up top. He gave them all Latin terms, by the way. So when you look it up, he gives them Latin terms because if it's not Latin, it's not scientific. Did you catch that? If it's not Latin, it's not scientific. You see? Can you see where culture comes in? You said you believe heaven is a state of mind. Um, Heaven is a state, and it can be a state of mind. Once again, the word mind, and we're talking about pneumatical thought, right? We're talking about a specific culture. So this might not meet your criteria, and I fully admit that. I'm not coming at you. I'm just saying it might not. But if you're going to talk about even in the Greek context of stuff and having a lot of this Greco-Roman stuff that we have today, then you've got to talk about pneumatical thought. Pneumatical thought is talking about the Stoic thought that marries the soul, the spirit, and the body together. So the kingdom of heaven is in me. It doesn't mean that at the same time it cannot simultaneously be above. at a certain point is going to do the same thing, because the kingdom of heaven is in you. That means that heaven has met earth already. And guess what it tells you in Revelation is going to happen ultimately, that heaven's going to meet earth. So culturally speaking, it's a different mindset, right? People might not catch it, but it doesn't mean that it's not relevant. Now, it might not be as relevant to some, once again, because we try to change the origin. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, principal things, foundational principles, concepts that are originals, that over time people have changed and changed and changed and changed and changed. Hello, Justice. If that's your way of saying hello, how are you doing? I appreciate you, as I've taken enough meds to comprehend what it is to show love towards somebody. And I think you have as well. So let's go ahead and get past the ad hominem, that we might be able to, have actual conversation. Because I feel like you're better than that. Matter of fact, I know you are, even if you don't think I am. But we have to get into that context, right? We got to be honest about that. You said, am I against tradition? I believe every tradition comes out of somebody's culture, and everybody's culture is to be respected, just as mine is. Today, I'm speaking out of my culture. I'm trying my best to represent how other things happen. But yeah, I think that tradition should be respected, but everybody's culture should be there. In some people's culture, certain traditions shouldn't get the same love that others do, but that's okay. If you come over my house, we might say, take your shoes off, don't go upstairs with food, whatever. If I go over your house, you might say, that's fine. What is my culture? My culture can be labeled as shwit. It can be labeled as yashara. It can be labeled as anakitawaya. I could keep going and going and going. I mean, I'm mixed with many different things, like many people are, and I actually can trace where my people come from. It's a very big, important thing to me. So, right. And if you don't know what those things are, I'm not going to stop everything to do that. We have stuff on our YouTube channel, literally hours upon hours of things just dealing with what we believe, and when we say certain words, what they are, what our context is of certain things. So if you'd like that, you can literally look up hashtag find Kofi, hashtag FINDKOFI, my name, find, like you're looking for something, then my name. And you can go on there and it'll be able to give you more information if you're actually interested. That's the YouTube channel name. And then you can look through the playlist for something called Having Been Led As We Believe, or look for the playlist for something that says Questions for Kofi, or look for the playlist for something that says Frequently Asked Questions. And you'll be able to find, or FAQ, and you'll be able to find different series that we've done where we've just talked about belief system. You said, yes, Jesus is the only way. Well, half man, half Zeus for some, right? Yeshua is what he called himself. Either way, I do believe in the Son of the Father, who is one with the Father, Aleph Bet, and also is led by the Holy Spirit, right? And I believe that his culture should be something that we bring up. So, sure. Once again, though, see, like even before we get into that, can you see the cultural problem we're having? Like people aren't even saying hello. You got to ask yourself, why is it that you are in a culture that says it's more important to demean or to say why I'm going to tear something down or this and that or whatever? And you might not even mean that, but you got to recognize, right? Like in our culture, it's okay to say shalom. It's okay to say hello. It's okay to say hola, right? It's okay, right? Like hola, ¿cómo está, right? Somebody could have hit me with a bonjour, je m'appelle whatever, right? Ça va, like something, right? Aquaba, etesent. Somebody could have said namaste. Somebody could have said Osaya, Ohio. Somebody could have said kamsamida, thanking, being grateful for being able to come on. But we don't do that. See what I'm saying? Culture. People aren't looking through a list. People are coming through a culture to where it's more important to demean rather than have a conversation. Right? So as we were talking about with Carla Nance, see, everybody's real quick. Oh, well, explain this. Tell me what this means. It's like you might not even be ready for that yet. How you doing? I guess the name is no offense to anybody. The name on here is Jew Baby. How are you doing? Right. So if you talk about Carla Nance, right? The father of I'm sorry, I'm having a moment here. How you doing, Boots? By the way, I missed you too on here. I'm trying to catch as many of these as possible. If I miss your name, charge it to my head, not to my heart. How you doing, Mustard? Mustard Seed. Alpha, I believe, Alpha 8 Gamma was on here. Sister Patricia. Sister Nadine, how you doing? I'm on. And to the babies, if your daughters are on listening as well as they often do. How you doing, Bruce? Thanks for being part of the community. Appreciate you. And as I said before, I don't mind questions. I really don't. I don't mind questions, comments, concerns. But as you can see, like questioning just for the sake of questioning, or questioning without comprehending the foundational principles is the issue. Thank you, Stand No Truth. Appreciate you. How you doing, your son, man? So going back to Carl Linnaeus is teaching that there's different groups of human beings, and he being of a colonial construct, a social construct, but he being of the white race, says that white people come first. Then he said that natives, and he meant really indigenous to the Americas, come second, as if there's no other people indigenous anywhere else, but that's what he did. Then thirdly, he said came the Asians, and then fourthly, he said came Black people, or Africans, or anybody he lumped into African, because he put Australia in there too, and anybody he considered to be African, and not realizing that Africa is many different people, which means that you should have talked about many different races according to his structure, but that's not what he did, right? Or at least he didn't have enough knowledge yet to put them in sub races or subspecies. That's what his mindset was when he did that. So Carl Linnaeus finishes that up, and then comes somebody named Charles Darwin, right? And Charles Darwin writes a book, very famous to many, right? People have not really read this book, and they haven't really thought about it through the cultural prism, even if they have. But let's just have an honest conversation about this book. Matter of fact, we'll just look at the title, right? And before I get into the title, I want to first, and this was written in 1859, by the way, so in London, right? In London, 1859. So if we're talking about this, we have to talk about this correctly. This is written in London in 1859. 1859 is also when you're about to get right, you're getting ready the next year to start having in the United States of America, countries, or what you call states, right? Because remember, by definition, a state is a nation. That's why it's the people of. People has to be a nation or a group of people. So you're going to have states getting out of the union of countries, or the union of states, and they're going to start making the Confederacy around the same time. You have to see the mindset of what's going on. Nobody wants to be honest about the mindset of this, right? But this is 1859. This is important that we get this together, right? We're just assuming that Charles Darwin, blah, blah, blah. And remember also too, this is a religious thing that we're about to get into. Religion. A legion of people repetitively have this thought process, this supposed pneumatical thought process in their culture. And so once again, Charles Darwin only went to school to be a preacher. Would he get other degrees that people gave to him? Sure. Later on, and some even posthumously, sure, or posthumously, sure. But he is somebody, right? You said, why did they want to leave the Union? They wanted to leave the Union. Well, people would say because of states' rights, but also you would have to look at what the states actually wrote out. If you look at the state of Virginia, the state of South Carolina, the state of Texas, territory of Missouri, the state of Virginia, the state of Georgia, the list goes on, you will discover that they said things about, hey, we're going to leave the Union because we believe that slavery is something that is God-given. It's something that benefits the bond and the free. That means the slave or the property and the person who owns that property. And that anybody taken away from that is taking away what our founding fathers wanted, which, by the way, is not necessarily a lie, because George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, John Monroe, and even number 2 and number 6, I skipped over number 2 and number 6, which are both the, second president, their father and son, John Adams and John Quincy Adams, who all of them either were Virginia slave owners or they worked for Virginia slave owners, which means that the founding fathers, or the generation that literally the son of one of the founding fathers who became the 6th president, if you start with George Washington as the first, we know there's others before him, but if you start with him as the first, they're all Virginia slave owners, right? And if you actually study what happened in 1776, there were 2 reasons. They tried to tell you it was only about taxes, but they understood that anybody who pays taxes by law is in debt, and anybody who by law is in debt is considered to be a slave to the person that they're in debt to, right? And so you had slave owners that didn't want to be enslaved by Britain. Up until that point, they never paid taxes. Then all of a sudden, England says, hey, we're taking care of business all over the world, and we just came out of this long war. It's a world war. We don't call it World War I. They basically came out of a world war, and they fought, and they had won, but they were kind of struggling financially. They were like, so we need people to pay taxes. And they said, we're not going to do that because we know that going to debt makes us slaves. So when you actually look at what happened in 1776, we have this mindset of, oh, it was just about taxes and this and that. No, you were dealing with capitalism versus slavery. That's always been the fight, capitalism versus slavery, right? In 1812, when they came back, it was capitalism versus slavery. Matter of fact, at that point, Haiti had already got her independence. When she did that, England and France, quickly after, that's why the Louisiana Purchase happens, England and France France tapped out and finally said, okay, capitalism it is. Now in capitalism, you can still have chattel slavery. You just have to arrest people first before you can have chattel slavery. So chattel slavery didn't go away. Even in the 13th Amendment, that would be written later on, was that 1865. It doesn't say that slavery is gone, right? And this is just a few years before, right? 1850, 1859. So what, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. So just 6 years later, you're having the same conversation where 13th Amendment, go look it up and read it. It doesn't say that slavery is gone. It is gone. It says we cannot arrest you just because of the color of your skin anymore. And by the way, people of color were still not considered to be people, but they were saying we can't take that property because why? Because the people of color, so to speak, they had become freedmen. They were a nation of freedmen. Look it up. They were actually called freedmen. They weren't called black. They weren't called Negro. They were called freedmen. It was a people. They had a name. They had a nation. Matter of fact, we talked about this last time. I was on Tuesday, I believe. Abraham Lincoln didn't free the slaves. It was General Sherman, and General Sherman spoke to 4 black pastors who were former slaves. And the pastors said, hey, we just want land to teach ourselves, not be a part of anything else, and make sure that we function correctly according to our own belief system. We're not here to say you got to give us and give us and give us. We want to do things on our own. And that's when General Sherman said, let them do it. And they became officially known as freedmen. So if you're looking for reparations, you need to start looking for it as freedmen. African Americans didn't exist until 1980. So you're only going to give us so much, right? You see what I'm saying? We're talking about law here. Nobody wants to talk about law. And how you doing, Brother Anthony? Thanks for being on. Thank you guys for the love. Appreciate you. How you doing? I'm just this vessel. Everybody coming on. We appreciate you. How you doing, Brother Ali? You said you noticed many at your job never say grand rising or good morning. They just start talking very weird. Yeah. Right. Because those are things that have been taken away. Right. But anyway, let me get back on track real quick. Right. How you doing, Charles? Let me get back on track. So here we are now with this book written in 1859 by Charles Darwin. And I want you to notice before I tell you the title, which should be enough for you to see what's really going on. But if we just look at Charles Darwin, he writes it. And what does it say? It says he's a fellow of the royal. That means royalty's backing this up. So this is not just one person. This is not just something. This is something where royalty says we're backing this up. Geological societies back this up. So if you're into geology, even the study of different things as far as the earth, they're saying that this stuff is relevant as far as the study of the earth. We're talking about evolution here. Come on. Right. And then what else? It's also talking about Linnaean. Didn't I just mention Carl Linnaeus? Linnaean societies, as well as many others. Carl Linnaeus is somebody who gave, so to speak, birth to this process of there are animal races, and then there are animal races that are in competition, they do better, and then out of those animal races come human races. He only gave you 4. Charles Darwin's going to take it to the next level. He's going to give you many breakdowns of them and still say that the ones that Linnaeus said were on top are still on top, and the ones that Linnaeus said are on the bottom are still on the bottom. How you doing, Sister Blossom? Right? So, what is the title of his book? And it's actually not the complete title. It's very rare. You got to look really, 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 really hard to find the complete title. They don't like to give you the complete title, right? Because it actually starts off as like, or it's actually the origin of species, the theory of evolution by means of natural selection or preservation. But you know, it's very difficult to find those nowadays. So since this is one that's really easy for you to find if you do a Google search, I'll just go ahead and put this one in front of you. So let's go with this title. It's The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. What does natural selection mean? Well, he tells you, this is a semicolon. Anybody know what a semicolon is? A semicolon, right? The dot looks like a colon, except the second dot, the lower dot, would be a comma, right? It would be made into a comma. And it means whatever came before it is equal to or is nothing without whatever comes behind it. This is what he said. So if I just look at what he wrote, he said this is the origin of species by means of natural selection. Or if you didn't get what I meant by when I said natural selection, let me make sure you comprehend. It also it really means preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. This is now I told you there's 6 types of evolution. Right? There's 6 types of evolution. But so we're getting to evolution today, but I'm just trying to say before we get deep into it, we got to admit that maybe when you're talking about evolution, it's not exactly what you think it is. Matter of fact, it's very interesting that people will try to say that Christianity is the reason for wars and this and that or whatever. And I would not deny you that. Matter of fact, once again, people make this weird distinction that because you believe in the Bible, you must be a Christian. I am not a Christian, right? I'm not Cristianos. I am not a Christian. I believe in the scrolls. I believe in the Zarah, the word of Yah, the Savah. But I'm not a Christian, right? But yeah, I totally admit to you that you can't talk about the Crusades, which is the killing off of people of color to try and take land that didn't belong to you and say that you're the chosen people. We can't, we can't act like there aren't people that weren't hung after, picnics where they picked an N-word and put them up and put it in the church bulletin, right? You open up your program and they would say at the end of the service, don't forget now, we're going to go outside. We done picked this nice one and we're going to go ahead and hang them and burn them. And then you can go ahead and if you want to give a donation or an offering or a tithe, we'll make sure that we give you a nice piece. And they would take that on. Yeah, it's interesting. Are you the same person that comes on every day and says that? That people come on and say, heal. I've healed. I have no problem healing. Right? This is why we need to talk about this stuff. We need to be honest. How do you heal? How do you heal a wound, but you keep picking at the scab, right? Now somebody says what I'm doing is picking at the scab, and I would grant you that's a creative way of gaslighting, right? And not actually answering my question. But if you have somebody that keeps saying y'all ain't nothing, y'all ain't nothing, y'all ain't nothing, hey, get over yourselves. See, you would be better if you would. In essence, you just keep telling the person they ain't nothing, but you won't actually deal with why. Even let's say you're correct that these people are people that aren't anything. Why would you not say maybe we should figure out why that is? Why is it that they come from royalty, but they have no link to royalty in their actions? If your only thing is to say heal, but you don't have any kind of you have nothing to put on it. You say heal of the wound, but you don't have anything to help to make sure that I'm first cleansed, right? And the weird part is they have more people who think like this. If we're not careful, this comes from an evolutionary background. Where if we're not careful, we actually reach into we'll have more once again because we're thinking of animals as being the same as certain types of humans and other humans being more evolved than the animals. You will see a turtle that will have something around its neck cutting off its circulation. And people will not say, turtle, you need to start breathing. All right, how you doing, Minister Tamal? All right. You hear what I'm saying? How you doing, Coco? Like if a turtle showed up on the shore and it had something tied around its neck, right? You hear what I'm saying? If a turtle showed up on shore, how you doing, Sister Night, and it had something wrapped around its neck, would they say to the turtle, why are you like that? Would they say to the turtle, hey, you should have known better? Would they say to the turtle, I'm not going to try to help you. You might try to do something to me. If the turtle starts reacting and trying to fight against the person, they won't say, hey, you're wrong to try and fight against me. Because they believe that some animals, some races are better than you. Once again, what's the title of the book? The preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. It's not just favored races as far as you came out of something. It's whatever race or whatever species that they favor. Right? In their mind, they don't favor you as much as they favor the turtle. If they did, they wouldn't just say heal. How you doing, Minister Shante? Think about that, right? Let their female dog, right, at home be sick. They'll take it to the vet and they want the best care. And the vet better not say, well, it's just an animal, because that's family. But let these sisters go, some of them would call them female dogs. Let these sisters, statistically speaking, I'm not lying, look it up. Statistically speaking, let one of our sisters go to the hospital. What do hospitals say? They say, oh, they teach this in school. It's still in nursing books. I've had nurses on here that tell me that they were miffed when they read it recently. So it's not something, this is a long time ago. All the stuff that you hear, you got to let that go. That's ancient times. It's ancient history. You got to get with the times. Nobody says that anymore. No, they still teaching books that if you look a certain way, you don't feel pain the way that others do. You said just because Charles Darwin was a racist doesn't mean, well, once again, so hang in there with me. You might just be coming on. Start off with a hello. Start off with listening to me. You have not heard me say that evolution is false flatly because Charles Darwin. As a matter of fact, if you listen to me, you'll discover I said there's 6 types of evolution, but many people only deal with Charles Darwin's evolution. So before we go there, right, just hear me out. Right? Respect for one another's humanity and just listen to the cultural context. You might have somebody telling you something different from a different culture. It doesn't mean that what I'm saying is inaccurate. Just it doesn't mean that what you're saying is inaccurate, but you might want to hear it first before you assume that that's my mindset. You said you asked me. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I'm on a couple different TikToks, YouTube, Facebook, and the podcast. I might miss a comment. Do I believe in evolution? My answer is obviously no. Now, if you're going to talk about like 6 type of evolution, the 6th type of evolution is technically just supposed to be that if a male and a female of a certain species come together, then they have something that looks like them, but it's slightly, but is a slight of that, but it is of slight variance. I would just call that having sex and procreating, but some people would call that evolution. So if you want to say that 6th type of evolution, I guess you can say by the definition, we agree. Right? Okay. That's like it's up, right? But other evolutions that people talk about, because once again, there's evolution of space, there's evolution of stars, and planetary evolution, right? There's supposed to be evolution. There's got to be evolution of everything on the periodic table. There's got to be evolution of elements, right? So those things I find to be a far cry from anything that is actually properly used as far as scientific method to prove those things, because they cannot really be used. And even if they are, even if you get, because I'll admit to you, every once in a while, out of millions of these experiments that exist nowadays, or that have existed over time that exist nowadays, you might have 1 or 2 of them that you can say this proves exactly what I'm saying, but that's not proper scientific. That's not how proper scientific method works. You have to be able to prove it with multiple controls, and it has to happen at least a majority of the time, or at least half the time. It can't be like 1 or 2 times out of millions. So for me, it's different. You said, how could I believe in evolution and God? I literally just said, if you're talking about the 6th type of evolution, which I don't consider to be evolution, I consider it to be sex, right? Marriage. In our culture, sex is marriage, marriage is sex. So I consider it to be sex, or what we would call marriage in my culture. But nevertheless, there's a 6th type of evolution. They try to say this is evolution, that they try to say if a male and a female have sex and procreate, right, their offspring will have slight variances, and they try to call that evolution. I do not call it that, but I would say, I guess by definition, we would agree that that's something that we both believe in. You see, hang with my words. I promise you, I'm really great with words. I'm not the best person to ever walk the face of this planet, but I promise you, there aren't too many people that are as dedicated to ensuring that etymology is not just something that's used to pass a test, but something that they use in their everyday walk, especially in this situation. You said, where can you find what I believe in detail? I'm the standard of it online. I come from Shwed Nation. I come from Yashdal. I come from Anakitawiya. The list goes on and on. I come from Tayin. I come from Omekshi. So you're not going to find a lot of people who necessarily live this, right? However, once again, I just gave you where you could read the book written by Charles Darwin, and you could literally read the title, and you could read up on Carl Linnaeus. I just gave you those. And that should be enough to at least start you on the journey of seeing that, hey, something really weird is going on, right? If we admit that what I just showed you as far as the title of the book, but see, you also get to a point, if I just be honest with you, sometimes it's hard because, look, I'm a Jellicoleots, and what, as far as my part of my family, what I've been called by my people of what you might call West African descent, and people that still live there, that they're the people who bestowed this upon me initially, right? Or even be a morach, or teacher, by the people who are of our culture of Yashda'am, right? Who it was our elders who bestowed that upon me as well, right? And my responsibility as such is to ensure that whether it be written verbal, artistic, music, etc., I'm supposed to make sure that I can give what our people have given. You said Olmecs. Olmecs had many different ones, right? You have Olmecs that were indigenous here. You have Olmecs there. What I'm talking about is a culture, right? You see what I'm saying? I'm talking about is a culture. And if you know the breakdown, let's do a simple one. If you talk about Taino, right, or even Boricua, right? Boricua to Taino, Taino to Jamaican, Jamaican to Taino, tied to Olmec sheep, right? How you doing, forever young? So there's some things that yeah, I'll go ahead as much as I can, and I'll say, please go to this book and please go to this. But there's some things that where look, I live this, right? Not like no offense, but I've done the college thing. I've written out things for colleges. I've spoken words over people and spoken at places like Howard Divinity or gone to classes and stuff like that and talked with people that are at Harvard. I've taught some of the people that are leading you guys now in your United States military. Like I function in a place where I've been blessed to have a lot of experience. How you doing, Apostle? Apostle Picasso. So I'm just trying to say there's going to be something to where like, yeah, I can't give you everything on paper because some of this stuff is not written in your books. Some of this stuff to where if you go to other people who have their own books or have their own language or sometimes just have their own verbal history and have their own faith and don't look at you as having to be the barometer of what their faith is. There's a lot of people who don't look at what a lot of people look at as the standard today. And I'm okay with that. As I said earlier, if I'm going to talk about evolutionists or creationists, both of you have to use scientific method, and right, and that's a problem with people who are creationists. They don't like to use any scientific method. But also, if you're an evolutionist, you got to deal in faith because there's some things that you just don't know, and you're just going to have faith in. Right, you're going to have faith in a theory until the next theory comes and says that theory that you're currently living in is wrong. How you doing, Minister Maria? But anyways, right? Like what I was saying about our women, right? Our women call themselves bees sometimes because they feel like bees get more respect than they do. And yet we won't talk about where that comes from. Do you not think that comes from a place to where we would literally call a book The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection or The Preservation of Favored Races? Race means species. So if somebody values a species of dog and the subspecies that leads to a female dog, right? It's really the same species, but hopefully you get what I'm saying, the breakdown under the umbrella of. If you respect that more than you respect the wife, then why are you surprised when the wife starts acting like what you respect? Oh, thank you, Herman. I appreciate it. You said having evidence is better than blind faith. Sure. So once again, what is the evidence that you have that you've been able to constantly, consistently prove in a laboratory with proper controls, with the if and the then correct instead of ending with the conclusion first? That shows exactly what's going on with the diagrams that they have nowadays. Three small solar systems or universes collide and Big Bang, or before that, something came out of nothing, or before that, right? Or even during that time, intelligent design, but there's no person that of intelligence to speak over it or to look over it, or space is a vacuum, but everything in a vacuum that can't stop and slow down and actually touch each other somehow, some way, touched each other, or that we can tell how long old space is, right? With billions of years, we can say, so it's this many billion light years away, so it must be this old. But we also have to recognize at the same time that there are things in space, including some of the parts that we say are these solar systems that apparently move faster than the speed of light. Like at some point, I'm just saying, even by the own standard, I like to hold people accountable to their standard. That's the thing for me is like, even if like, so, and what happens once again is people say that what I'm talking, see, for me, watch this. Faith is evidence. See, it's a cultural thing. For you, you say faith is not evidence. But see, a lot of people trying to say if I don't physically see something, but just because you physically see something, you've never physically seen, watch this, you've never physically seen anything to support a neutron. It's a theory. You said you don't need faith in science. Okay, fine. Show me a neutron. You said faith is a poor path to truth. Okay, show me a neutron. Right? Because people think I'm just randomly talking about stuff. Show me a neutron. I might not be the greatest scientist in the world, but I know enough of what I speak. I don't just come on stuff regularly. Right? Said faith is worth past. Okay, show me a neutron. See, let's just be honest. Let's have honest dialogue. Show me a neutron right now. Because I'll show you where your faith is. Show me a neutron. Nobody's ever shown anybody a neutron. Show me a neutron. And then tell me you don't have faith. You see, like that's what I'm saying, right? Show me a neutron. Show me a neutron. You said where do you bring a particle accelerator? Show me they never showed a neutron in a particle accelerator, right? Because then we got to get into neutrinos as well, right? Are we going to the neutrino speech? You got to show me neutrino, which they thought they knew what that was. But the problem that broke down the whole thing about neutrino was the fact that the neutrino moves, although it doesn't have mass, right? But it moves, even though it moves faster than the speed of light, it still can move, which is not supposed to happen. So their whole version of a neutrino, or even what happens at the speed of light, was broken down, which means we still don't know what is talked about. Now we have other theories to try and put in there to try and make things a little more whole, but we still don't know, right? You hear what I'm saying? Like we can get, I'm not just randomly coming up with stuff, right? You know of which you are very educated, so you know that of which I speak. This is basic level stuff that you would learn in your colleges. They should tell you this in your high schools and junior high schools, right? So I'm assuming that you already know. I'm not going to go through this big deep thing. I'm assuming you already know what I'm talking about. But you won't show me a neutron because you can't even show me a neutrino. See, I already know where this rolls. And this is basic. Once again, I'm not a scientific genius by any stretch. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you I'm going to write out all the calculations for you, but I do know enough about stuff. See, watch this. Where did the theory of a neutron even come from? You help me out since I'm supposed to be the one who's daft. And I don't mind being looked at as daft in any department because I don't need to know everything. Right. But once again, you help me out. Why do you even believe? Where did the belief of neutrons come from? Help me out. If we're talking about it, you got to help me out. Where did the belief of neutrons even come from? Why do you believe in a such thing as a neutron? Why do you believe that there's 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons? Some of you even try to say that's what 666 means, even though 666 is not 6 separate things. That would be 18, but it's actually 603 score and 6. That would mean it would be 666. 3 sixes is different than 666. Somebody said Newton. Go back. Nope, it's not. It doesn't go back that far. I don't know if somebody teaches that, so maybe I'd have to see the teaching. But no, a neutron is something that is totally hyper theoretical. It's totally hyper theoretical. See, even people say, see, melanin, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, six. No, that's not because neutrons are not even real, and definitely wasn't. They definitely weren't looked at as being real when the people who actually wrote the Bible and the person who would have written Chazon, or what you guys or Chazon, or what you guys call now Revelation, which by the way doesn't mean it's something to be revealed. Revelation is actually talking about something to rejoice in. Revel means to rejoice. Tion means it's a person, place, or thing. So when some of us read Revelation, it means something that makes us scared or look at this thing weird because we don't know the culture. Those who live it, though, we rejoice at what we read in there because it means that we're getting close to something that's going to be better. But once again, when you talk about protons and you talk about electrons, right, and neutrons, this is how the science goes. See, when we're talking about this stuff, we're having bad cultural conversation. Right? We're having bad cultural conversation. How you doing, Brother Henry? Right? And how you doing, God particle? Talking about the Higgs particle, right? We're having bad conversation. Well, it's just 6 6 in for those who believe in that, right? But the people who wrote the Bible never, I've written this out before. If you know how to write in Hebrew, every character in Hebrew has a number attached. So when it says it's 603 score and six is the number of a name, you have to know how in Hebrew how to write out a name that equals 603 score and six. And then if you want to prove it in the Greek version, it actually spells out 616. So if you can spell out a name that spells out 666 and 616 and it's the same name, then you already know what the number of a name is. It's a code for those that are in the system. So we actually know, those of us who could write out in Hebrew, you already know what the word means. You already know what the number of the name is because every name would have a number attached. So it's actually not that difficult to find out, especially when you can prove it in two different languages and it's the same name. Guys, that before in the live sessions, that's not the point of today, right? So that's what I'm saying. You're even from our brethren, our Afrocentric brothers and sisters who I love so much. And they out there, yeah, melanin, man, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, 6 protons. That's a theory. Don't get caught up on the same thing that you said the oppressor does to you. You're doing the same thing. You lining up theories, and these theories don't even work. See, you got to become a code breaker, but in order to break a code, you got to know the code. World War II, it doesn't get won unless you got Navajo code breakers. They put a code out there that on purpose, they hired these people on purpose. They hired this tribe of people on purpose because they knew they had a code that was very difficult for anybody to learn, especially if you had never really been in what we call the United States of America. So a bunch of victories were won because a bunch of people didn't have the code. Right? I'm just saying, we having conversations here. We're not ready. You said you can prove a neutron. Okay, prove to me a neutron. Show me a neutron. That was what I asked, right? Show me a neutron. While you're doing that, right? You said if neutrons weren't real nuclear reactors and nuclear fission wouldn't work. That's not true at all. You know how they came up with neutrons in the first place, right? You know, just because somebody gives you a mathematical equation and it happens to go along with something, that means, yeah, I'll give you where there's smoke, there's fire. But they haven't proved anything about a neutron yet. You got to have faith, right? You ready for this? Where does a neutron come from? When did the word neutron start? When they started having these bombs that were exploded, right? The huge bombs that they were testing and stuff, they didn't know what a neutron was. You know that, right? So you trying to go into nuclear weapons and all, you know that they didn't believe in neutrons when they came up with the nuclear bomb, right? Are you aware of that? You might not be, like we were talking about earlier. I don't want to act like everybody know. I don't know everything, right? But I'm just saying, you know that there is no, when they came up with the nuclear bomb, nobody knew what a neutron was or had heard of one yet. How you doing, Minister Tamara? Are you aware of that? See what I'm saying? We're talking about these words and doing evolution and talking all this stuff, but we won't be honest about where this stuff comes from. Once again, they made the nuclear bomb without knowing what a neutron was, which means that you don't need neutrons to talk about nuclear fission, right? And please forgive me for any facial expressions I might give if they seem to be off. My knee is hurting really, 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 really bad. I'm trying to hang in there. So hopefully I'm not coming off as like a jerk to anybody. It is not my mindset today, okay? Just if it is coming off that way, I do apologize. I'm playing hurt today. I'm trying to give you the best I can, but I'm a little I'm a little off right now as far as pain, right? Pain tolerance is doing pretty well right now, but it's hurting a little bit. Okay. So hopefully nobody's taking what I'm saying as far as I'm attacking you. If so, I apologize up front. It is not my intent. It is not my heart to do so. And if it comes off that way, I apologize. All right. Right. But once again, you can't tell me I can't have a nuclear power plant, right, without neutrons. If I could make a whole nuclear bomb and drop it on places to test it and then test it on a whole group of people to end the war, and I didn't even know what a neutron was. Thank you, Sister Monica. How you doing, Shells? See, so somebody hits me with that, but I'm like, no, they didn't know what a neutron was. And this is not according to what I wanted to be. This is not according to people that agree. This is according to people who are still telling you they can't prove what a neutrino is. These are from the same people who are part of some of the stuff like the Higgs particle experiment that happened not too long ago, where they did it twice. Right, they did it once, waited a lot of years, did it again, and they keep saying there's more questions than there are answers. And they came up with more subatomic particles recently and things like that. Like, I'm not an expert at it, but I know I know enough to know what we're talking about. That's not true. Neutron was not. That's something that people try to get into. Neutron was not discovered in 1932. And by the way, nuclear bombs, right? Just because I talked about the one that was dropped on Hiroshima doesn't mean that nuclear bombs didn't exist until 1942 either. So we got to stop that, because we know exactly where the whole mindset of neutrons comes from. It came from 5 young men, one of them even boys, aging from range of 15 years of age to 25. And they came up with the theory of a neutron after they couldn't explain something that was going on when they were having things explode. This is real talk. You can look this up, right? What happened was they were having explosions happen. And energy is supposed to always turn into mass. That's what they teach you in school, right? Energy always turns into mass, and mass must always turn into energy. There cannot be any new energy that comes out of anything, right? Because it simply either was energy from before, or it was mass from before that's turned into it. There cannot be any new mass, because the mass had to come from some other mass, or it was therefore it was always mass, or it had to come from something that was originally energy. That's what they teach, right? Right? Am I accurate on that? Like, that's a simple one, right? He said we don't live on a flat earth. Okay, if that's your way of saying hello, Pete, that's fine. You're totally missing the conversation, right? I get it. You see an image, and so that's the first place that your mind goes, and I get that, right? I don't mean for it to be clickbait, right? But anyways, catch what I'm saying. So energy doesn't turn into mass. Mass doesn't turn, or energy is either already in existence or it must come from mass. Mass is already in existence or it must come from energy. That's what they said. Problem is that they started making these bombs that explode, and they were having protons and electrons. They were having them explode. And when they caused the protons and electrons to explode, guess what happened? Can you take a guess? Oh yeah, I'm fine. I got to be careful what position I'm in. But thank you, Sister Nadine. I hear you. Yeah, everything has a measure of faith for sure. So guess what they had to do? A theory is an educational guess. It's supposed to be an educational guess based off of law, especially off of natural law. That's what is supposed to make something theoretical. If it's not theoretical in that regard, unless you're talking about, even sometimes we can talk about religious theory, but even still, that's supposed to deal with certain laws of the universe. If it doesn't hit certain laws of the universe correct, then it's not supposed to be a theory, right? By law, by natural law, by kingdom law, by marital law, right? By procedural law, substantive law, public law, private law. You can't have these theories without it actually dealing with some kind of law. That's how that's how a theory works, right? You said these people with this stupid philosophy was ridiculous and mind-boggling. Once again, nobody will talk about the facts. I give context. I don't give context without facts. I don't give facts without context. If you like to listen to the contextual facts, fine. If not, I don't comprehend why you think that ad hominem allows you to find yourself to be apologetically sound. Matter of fact, it just simply comes off as a straw man that you're making and gaslighting, because I'm not saying you really don't even know what today's about. We're talking about evolution. And I literally talked about there's 6 types of evolution. Many people coming off of a Darwinistic mindset or Darwinistic tendencies, and they're trying to utilize certain things that actually should not be principles because they're not origins, they're not lawful. But once again, if somebody can't listen to that, do you see the problem? No, people won't even listen to the culture. People can't even listen to the culture because it's not their culture. See, that's what I'm trying to tell you. People have a faith in something, and no matter what it is that you talk about, their faith is something that pops up rather than their ability to listen. Because anybody who's talking about something through a scientific lens should be able to say, well, what is your hypothesis? Because I'm saying if what you say is true, then certain things could be there. And let's go ahead and use certain controls to be able to see if these things are there, not just once or twice, but if they pop up with regularity, at least half the time. And if it pops up with enough regularity, then we should at least, then we can, even if I still think it's a theory, I have to say it's a stronger theory. But if we get to a certain point on some things, they just have to turn into facts. But the context of the experimentation has to be there so that the conclusion can be able to support or say support the hypothesis. Problem is people want to work in reverse, where you want to go conclusion first. This is what it is, and therefore you try to say that that you try to make up things without even having proper controls in place, and say that whatever I say can't even be something that's put in your list of controls or put in your different experimentations to see if where does this fall into, so that we might even be right. So you already have that in place. Then you go in reverse again and say, okay, so this is, I've already mandated this, therefore my hypothesis is already true. But that's working in reverse. That's working in reverse. According to your own standard. If you say you're going off a scientific method, then why are you reversing it? Why have you came to a conclusion without even hearing the hypothesis and seeing the controls that I'm putting in place? Now, if you're saying my controls are valid, but you haven't even heard the controls yet or even don't comprehend it because it comes through a different cultural lens, right? Like, science is just based off of your culture. For a long time, they said that medicine men and medicine women were all witches. But now they're talking about natural medicine is key. Right? Was it not a time not too long ago to where going to a medicine man for something was something that was considered to be crazy in your religion of science? Science is cultural. People are acting like because we can tell if somebody's going to have a child or not, and if they're pregnant or not, if it's going to be a boy or a girl, this is a new thing. We've been doing that since the times of Kemet being in power 4,000, 5,000 years ago. We could have the same way that a woman urinates on the little sticks that y'all buy at the Dollar Tree and stuff now, right? You can afford them at the Dollar Tree now. Like, we used to tell a woman to go ahead and we would plant two different plants, right? When they began to come up out the ground, we would have her urinate on both of them, all right? And if one would have a reaction, if one had a reaction, that was saying she was pregnant or she was not pregnant, and it would even turn a certain color. If it turned a certain color, we would know that whether she was having a boy or a girl. Didn't even need an ultrasound, right? Now, some of you would have said that that's not scientific. That's extremely scientific. It's chemistry. Before it was called chemistry, it was actually called chemistry. It was a study of what these people of Kemet used. So even when you talk about chemistry, you don't want to talk about what's actually real in culture. See what I'm saying? We're having a conversation and people just go, because you look at it differently, it can't be called science. Why not? Why not? Why are you talking about brain surgery as if the father of modern, that's when you say modern, you mean Western, but the father of modern medicine, helped you with different things in these surgeries and stuff. We were doing brain surgery hundreds of years or thousands of years ago, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. There's evidence. Now, was it as refined as some of it? I'll admit, surely not. But we're not going to act like y'all just started being able to look at this stuff. Matter of fact, we knew about the pineal gland before you guys knew about it. We knew about the pituitary gland before you knew about it, right? But you'll say that what we did was not scientific. Doesn't make sense. No, Sha'al or Sheol is not where the devil lives. Sha'al or Sheol for us, that's what you would call hell. The devil in the Bible never even says that the devil lives in hell. The Bible tells you that the devil will eventually end up in what we call hell, but he's not in hell right now, right? Look at the book of Job. Where is the devil? Oh, I've been roaming around going to and fro, seeking whom I may devour. Now, once you get to Revelation chapter 12, it even tells you that from there, like, the devil was defeated and he gets shot down to the earth, where he's now not allowed to go back to heaven at all. And now all he does is just go back and forth. You see? But somebody else's culture comes along and says, the devil is in hell. And then you start watching movies like Constantine or reading, and I've read them. I think some of them are great. At least, well, I did. Now I realize they're very demonic and sadistic and stuff. But I enjoyed them, when I was had that worldly mindset for that. And you read those graphic novels like Constantine. I know the movie, a lot of people said was some trash. But when you look up Constantine and stuff like that, you find some real stuff in there as far as like they actually did their research. They actually know what they're talking about. They know which nature or God or deus or deity is doing this and that, whatever. And they bring it together in some compelling stuff, right? But when you look at stuff like that, you keep thinking the devil's in hell. See, the greatest trick of the enemy is not to make you believe he doesn't exist. First thing he had to do is make you think he's not even here. How you doing, Hank's Cuisines, LLC? Got an LLC, that's great. Keep it moving, keep pushing, keep taking care of business. But can you see what I'm saying? All right, like if people are so quick to have us in a position where we're trying to fight something that's not our fight. My fight has nothing to do with the devil being in hell. If somebody's telling you he's in hell, there's somebody who's lying to you. Read your Bible. It'll bless you. You show me in your Bible. Show me in your word right now. Show me where the devil's in hell. Right? Brings me back to these neutrons. Show me a neutron. Show me a neutrino. You can't. You said, why is that night we don't see the same blue horizon? We were looking up into the sky. Yes, we don't see it. Obviously, it's an artistic rendering, and the person's more so probably doing some stuff as far as the reflection of the waters that they're on the other side of the choir, what you call the firmament. So, yeah, but it's an artistic rendering, right? It's trying to get the point across, but if it's not a perfect one, hey, so be it. Just like a lot of people are once again talking about firmament, don't even realize you're talking about Uranus, which is a Greek deity, and has nothing to do with the choir or what Yahweh actually called what you call the firmament. Oh, I'm sorry, Steve. I mixed and matched what you said. I misread what you said. Sorry about that. Forgive me. That's on me. Forgive me. Like I said, I'm trying my best to keep my face together. My leg is not doing too well, so I'm dealing with some pain. But forgive me, Steve. I misread what you said. I apologize, sir. Please forgive me. So we have like this weird thing that's going on where we don't want to admit certain things that are going on culturally. We don't want to admit that there's certain things going on as far as what things mean. And we don't even want to have an honest conversation. Once again, if I'm talking about, if I am talking about, and roll with me still, we're talking about cultural conversation, cultural context, right? Not context without facts or facts without context, contextual facts. If we're going to have proper conversation concerning this, yes, I'm getting what you would call Ghanaian. I mean, Ghana's, not what we used to call ourselves, but yeah. So if we go there, right, if we're going to deal with, okay, Tori, yeah, thank you. So if we're going to deal with these items, if we're going to be honest about this stuff, if we're going to have honest conversation, if we're going to keep it a buck, if we're going to stop, going through a lot of this foolishness that we do as far as we just try to be right instead of being righteous, and we're going to stop trying to win, and we're going to look at things outright for what they're supposed to be. Okay? If we're going to look at them correctly as far as what they are supposed to be, right? Okay. If we get back to this thing as far as a neutron, I asked the question earlier. Nobody wants to answer the question because everybody just wants to fight, right? But if you notice, nobody really answered the question when I kept asking over and over again, well, where did a neutron come from? When did we start using this term neutron, et cetera, et cetera? Nobody wants to actually answer that because the answer is a lot of people don't know. Somebody came close and they said something along the lines of, well, the nuclear bomb, didn't get dropped until, which one I'm talking about is 44, but the nuclear bomb, obviously was tested for decades and, really years as far as what we know the nuclear bomb to be before it actually was dropped. We know this, right? That's the way everything works. Like, somebody doesn't randomly, it's very rare that somebody creates something on a Tuesday and they start using it more on a Saturday. Okay. Right. Like it takes people time to put this stuff together. Right. We know this. That being said, if I were, let's have honest dialogue, like I was saying earlier. Let's have honest conversation. Okay. Protons and electrons were both exploding. And some people would even say they discounted electrons. I don't know enough about that to confirm or deny that yet. I've heard that several times. I even saw somebody, I think it was, well, I don't want to say who it was because I might be wrong, but somebody said in the comments today. I'm not sure about that, but I know that they believed in protons, they believed in electrons. That's what they said there was. There weren't any such thing as neutrons. There were protons, there were electrons. What happened is you start having the protons and electrons explode. Remember what I told you is that they said that energy always has to turn into mass, and mass has to always turn into energy. That's what they teach. That's what they taught, right? Energy has to always turn into mass. Mass has to always turn into energy. If it's not turning into one or the other, then then it's a fallacy, right? It has to be there. Problem is when they started having these protons and electrons explode, they could not find where the energy went from the mass, or even out of the energy of the explosion, it didn't turn back into something else, which would be mass. You said neutrons are neutral once again, so just hear me out. I get it. I know what a neutron's supposed to be. I went to school like all of y'all. Just hear what I'm saying, right? Just roll with me. Because you can't show me a neutron. That's ultimately my point. And you can't show me a neutrino, which is what a neutron comes out of. A lot of people don't even know what a neutrino is. But anyways, so they said, okay, we're not going to show you. So basically they said we're going. They just kept it the same. They knew that when they were having these major explosions happen, that what they were teaching you in school was not so. It was not true. They could not show you. They could not show you where the energy went. They could not show you where the mass went. So something was wrong. Okay. For years, they didn't know how to describe this. Eventually, what happens? Or like their favorite dogs. And how you doing, Trevon? Yeah. So eventually, this is what happens. Eventually, they start to teach that or I'm sorry, there's these 5 boys, as I had mentioned earlier, right, from Italy. These 5 boys that I mentioned earlier from Italy. These boys come together, or well, ages 15 to 25, so whatever you want to call them. They come together and they have this, and they keep conversing about this, and then they come up with a theory. They say, well, what if there's a neutral spot that the energy goes to? We just can't find it because the protons, the positive, aren't going over to the negative, the electrons, the electrons are going over to the positive, the protons. But what if there's a place in the middle that these two things meet? Right? What if there's a place in the middle where these two things meet? Yeah, that's what they tell us. Neutrinos are things that don't interact with normal matter. But let's see how they even got to the theory of neutrino, right? Which they can't quantify, qualify. We'll get there, right? Right? I'm with you. Right. But they said, okay, well, what's a neutron? So they came up with this thing called neutron. Well, we can't find where it went from the positive. We can't find where it went from the negative. Maybe it goes to a neutral space. And therefore started the theory of neutrons. That's real. Almost like a particle purgatory. Yeah. Yeah, that's a very smart way of saying it, actually, Brother Kayvon, right? But that's basically what happened. Or I don't know if that's Kayvon. I'm sorry. There's so many of us on here. Forgive me if I'm getting names mixed up. I hope I said that right. Right. But so now we got a problem. The neutron is something that we need to say that what we said earlier exists. Because we told everybody. Right? See what I'm saying? We just think because they teach you something that must be correct. We taught everybody. This is what their thinking is. We taught everybody that there's a such thing as what? We taught everybody that there's a such thing as what? We taught everybody that there is a such thing as energy always turns into mass and mass always turns into energy. But we can't find the energy from the proton or the electron when we're blowing them up. So what do? Okay, we'll tell them there's a neutral space. They didn't tell us anything for a long time because for the longest time, they wouldn't even tell you anything. But now they're like, okay, well, we need something. All right, we'll tell them that it goes to a neutral space. We've come up with the neutron. And a lot of people don't know that those same young scientists kept looking for it to the point to where they disappeared. And later on, you find out some of them were getting paid by Russia or some of them were getting paid by America or whatever. But people were going all these different places hoping somebody would help them with their research so they could prove this theory to everybody that there was a neutron. Problem is that they had been teaching this theory so much by this point, though, that even though it was never proven, they had to keep it. By the way, this shouldn't surprise you, because there's certain theories that have been disproven, just like the theory of gravity. Oh, wait a minute. You're saying it's nothing that keeps us to the ground? No. But look it up. The theory of relativity disproved the theory of gravity. But we keep it. We still use words like this is the gravitas of the situation or the gravity of such things. We love songs. Gravity, say that away from me, right? And all that stuff. But it's hyper theoretical. Because gravity doesn't just mean what keeps you from leaving the earth. Gravity What keeps you from going side to side? What keeps you from going up? What holds you in place? And Einstein's theory of relativity, which, by the way, that has been disproven as well. But Einstein's theory of relativity. And am I saying that none of these things? I'm talking about the whole theory, right? If the theory doesn't work as a whole, then it's not a theory. You can use pieces of the theory, sure. So, when I'm talking about this with people, right? A lot of people automatically go to, oh, he's wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. No, look it up. Look it up for yourself, right? And see if what I'm saying is actually things that are out there. I didn't make up the theory of neutrons, but I'm willing to study them. I didn't just automatically say that they were wrong. I studied them to see if there's actually something, and it was people out of the scientific community who teach this. You got to ask yourself, why is it that if you ask them these questions, if you get them in a corner, so to speak, they'll tell you the truth about it, but you don't learn this in school to the point to where you'll argue it with me, and you'll say, well, and then some of you will even try to hit me with some stuff that's not even cool to do. You try to hit my bona fides. Well, you don't even have a degree in this and blah, blah. Well, the people who have a degree in this, ask them, why didn't they tell you the truth? Why is it that somebody that you don't hold, you think that I don't have any right to teach? But the people who do have a right to teach, they don't tell you this stuff. You got to ask yourself. How you doing, Meek Tills? I'm just saying, it's like when somebody knows the true name of Yah. You got to ask, why didn't they ever tell you one time what his name was? Is that my fault? Should you get mad at me because I'm telling it to you, or should you get mad at the person who didn't tell you? Right? Should you start asking yourself questions? Is it all right to continue to go down this mindset with somebody that won't tell you the truth? Right? Like some of you put so much stock in school, but why didn't they tell you that if it wasn't for Thomas Jefferson, who was trying to get poor whites and blacks, if you want to use those social constructs, he was trying to get y'all to go to school so that y'all would work for him. And then the family that came and made sure that they made the most benefit off of it was the not the Rothschilds, even though they benefit off it. But what was it? The not Morgans, the Rockefellers. You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to get you to have a cultural conversation that you might not have. You might not be able to have this cultural conversation. Right? You're trying to have a conversation that you're not able to have because you're not willing to admit that, like, maybe these people, that they've lied about a whole bunch of other things, maybe they lied about this too. Well, we could talk about NASA, by the way. NASA in Hebrew means what? Right? What does NASA even mean? Like, people don't even know. People just think people pick out random terms. And then because they can match some English spells to it, then we just go, oh, okay, it must be the truth. Like, what does NASA mean? What does NASA mean? Do you know? No such thing as a neutron, but you will fight for it. Just like technically there's no such thing as the human race, because there's no such thing as animal race, all right? And even if you want to call it animal race, right? I'm not in a race with any of y'all. I'm not in competition with any of you. I'm in competition to be the best version of myself. And the only time I might have to compete against you is if you come against my family. But see, the word Nasa is talking about somebody who's a liar. It's talking about being a deceptive person. NASA has a meaning. Or when they tell you stuff, they'll be like, oh, this is so wrong. You guys are this and that. Why don't they tell you that the United Nations, their original photo is a flat earth? You ever looked at the original logo, rather? Do you know that the original logo for NASA is a flat earth? But then somebody tells you, and by the way, I don't believe the earth is flat like a pancake either, right? But I'm just telling you, like, there are people out here who have your same thing. Matter of fact, why don't they tell you that up until the 1900s, teachers were getting locked up? And now you might say, well, that's people doing these weird witch hunts. Okay, fine, but just hear me out. Why have you never been taught that even into the 1900s, the early 1900s, that teachers who were teaching evolution and not creation were being arrested? Because why would you teach a child that? in random places. I'm talking about in the United States of America. You know that America didn't even teach evolution like that until they lost the space race. Are you aware of that? I just want you to know certain things. Like, are you aware that America didn't even teach evolution in schools like that until they lost the space race? Are you aware? See, the system is sus. They'll tell you that I'm the one that's in the wrong, but they were arresting folk. Go back 100 years, and they were arresting folk for this. Now, people are going to say, well, 100 years ago, there was slavery. Well, there's still chattel slavery. So that's a bad argument for you, right? But I get what you're trying to say when you say that. But hear what I'm saying, right? 100 years ago, you would have got, matter of fact, when y'all got, they played us. A lot of y'all got played. Right? Y'all act like this whole mask thing, and they were like, this is the first time, and this is the thing that's going to make us the word. Man, go back 100 years and look up 100 years ago, people wearing masks. And you'll find that people were wearing masks for a bunch of stuff before. Not just talking about when 1, 2 people were sick. Where whole cities and whole countries, and sometimes the whole Western world was wearing masks because they were afraid of something that was coming. And there were other people that didn't wear the mask. And guess what? You're still here. And yet they told you that if everybody didn't get the shot, all of y'all were going to die. And guess what happened? Let's say this is what the most they can tell you. And they are fudging these statistics. But they were telling you that if everybody didn't get the shot, we were all going to die. They say that we did a great work because 1 billion people got the shot. And that sounds mighty until you take into effect that there's supposedly, by their statistics, there's supposed to be 8 billion people, which means that 1 out of 8 people got the shot. Right? 1 out of 8 people, got the shot. So 7 out of 8 people didn't get the shot. Did 7 out of 8 people die? Or, excuse me, I got to be careful with my language. Did 7 out of 8 people not survive? I'm not saying that it's not real, but I'm not saying it's not real. I'm not doing that. I'm trying to get you to comprehend something. You see what I'm saying? But their whole goal was what? To get your perspective to be on some whole what? If I don't get this, then I'm doing my fellow man a disservice. And this is for educational purposes only. Thank you. Right. But what I'm saying is if 1 billion people got the shot, was it really worth it when now they tell you that, hey, do you know, like if you live in Chicago, like, you know, this is law, go look it up, that people who were forced to give up their jobs because they didn't take the shot, or people who, lost their jobs or whatever, or were fired or didn't get hired, some who didn't even get hired, they're having to give people money or having to give them their jobs back. Now, they never got the shot. And this is not just in Chicago. That's just one that I can come off the top of my head with. I want to give you somewhere, if you research it, you'll find it. But how is it that these people who never got the shot are getting this stuff? That could it possibly be because they realize that when people are suing them for this stuff, that if we don't make sure we start giving people money back, we could be raked through the coals? Right? You could have gotten an exemption letter. You could have written your own exemption letter. We wrote a bunch of them out. But you could have gotten an exemption letter. And your exemption letter is more powerful than anything they can try and do against you. Oh, yes, it is. Because your religion, right, is protected by law. You have the right to do things according to your religious belief. Right? I'm just trying to tell you all these things, they're lawful. I don't want to go too deep into that because now we're coming up. You said you couldn't because you're in the military. We did it for people in the military too. You just might not have known how to do it because the military is the first people to deal with the Nuremberg Code in the United States. The Nuremberg Code was something that came out of the Nuremberg trials, right? And out of the Nuremberg trials, that was a trial to put people on trial. They did it in the United States of America. The president of the United States is the one who pushed for it to happen. They put people on trial who did what they did to the Jews and others over in Germany during World War II, right? And people were held accountable for the despicable things that they did. And once they did that, then they came up with something called the Nuremberg Code. Look it up for yourself, right? And when you look up the Nuremberg Code, you'll find something interesting. Right? When you do the Nuremberg Code, you'll find something interesting. It has 10 laws that are recognized all around the world. The United States Army in the 1950s started it. I know it because we had to make sure we did this for people in the Army first. They were the first ones, right? The Sister Cassandra, who's come on and she's told y'all the story herself. So I'm not making something up at random, right? But we dealt with that, and I was like, yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to work, but I was like, I found this law and I found this Nuremberg Code, and when you look at it, then we put the scriptures with it, then we write the exemption letter correctly, you should have no problems. And even though they kept trying to push her on it, and even they were like, well, you're not going to be able to travel here and go here, she was like, that's fine, like, but you're not going to kick me out. And they sure couldn't, but they told us that. Right, I'm former military, so I know how some of that stuff goes down too. Had to do admin stuff, had to do supply stuff, which means I had to get really great with paperwork. I promise you, like it can be done, right? But we don't recognize how to do that. And if there's somebody named Find Name, if you're not randomly trying to come on, or if you're alive from something else, then and you're trying to get on, I need to know more about you. I just apologize. Today is probably not the day I can do it if I don't know who you are. But yeah, you don't have to get a shot. And by the way, if you ended up getting COVID, right? What did they say? If you got it, they said that you actually were 12 times, or it was, I feel like it was like 16, but I'm gonna just say 12. They said that they said at least 12 times it was you had 12 times the immunity against it. Right? I'm trying to get you to see that we're not into law. Remember we talked about that, lawful or legal? Just because somebody can legally do something doesn't mean it's not law, or doesn't mean it's automatically lawful. Law always supersedes what's legal. And when it comes to natural law, going back to evolution now, and these neutrons, we just showed you, nobody can show, and all the stuff that people have said, nobody can still show me a neutron. Now they'll say though that you should not say, well, you can't show me the Most High. I want you to see the evolutionist mindset. They carry the same mindset, but they have the cognitive dissonance and the double-minded precepts. Right, the precepts that come out of double-minded behavior takes you into a place to where they are not able to see that they're doing the same thing to you that they say you shouldn't do to yourself. They do it to themselves as well. You cannot tell me that you cannot find a neutron. You cannot tell me that when you discover what you say a neutrino is, that it works completely different than what it is, and realize that maybe it's not even what you thought it was. You cannot tell me that even though you got something that kind of sort of makes the Higgs particle work, where you can say the math works just enough, but then when you find out about it, you realize the Higgs particle can't be the God particle, right? You can't keep telling me that you go by theories that don't even work anymore, like the theory of gravity and theory of relativity, when both have been disproven. But and so you can't show me these things. But at the same time, you tell me that I'm wrong to have faith in something that has not changed yet. I'm not talking about Christianity. I'm talking about the origin of it. Something that has not changed yet. What do you mean it has not changed? In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. The earth was without form and void. That's gas. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. That's water. It started to cool down and liquefy. And the spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the water. And Elohim said, let there be light. That wasn't physical light. That doesn't exist to day 4. So on the first day, the first yom, the first period of time, you think that means 24 hours. First period of time, enlightenment hit the tip of the water. And as the tip was hit, the rest of it. So the tip was hit up here. And all of a sudden, all the waters, this is all waters at one point, the tip is hit. And so the water up top starts to be enlightened. It starts to do certain things. Molecules start to come in order. Different things, order and structure start to happen. And then all of a sudden, the second day pops up, right? And it says, let us separate the waters from the waters. So this water is starting to come up here. And now as it separates, this water is got just enough where it's starting to go through its thing. They separate, and then it says, let us put something in between the two, and we'll call that Shamayam. We'll call that heaven. And heaven is right there. So now we've gone from gas that was just without form or void, nothing, to all of a sudden the gas is there, but now it's starting to liquefy at the top. And then all of a sudden it started to harden at the top, gas, liquid, solid. It's starting to liquefy at the bottom now, and it's starting to go through the enlightenment. And then on the third day, it says the earth rose up out of the water with herb yielding seed, which, by the way, is proven by volcanoes coming out the water and all this stuff. Then on the fourth day, right, it says that then you had the sun, the moon, and the stars. You got to have the sun, the moon, and the stars because you have to have something to activate the chlorophyll, right? and something that eventually will activate the melanin that's going to be on the earth, right? The plants are going to have the chlorophyll, animal life, and human beings are going to have melanin. Well, all of a sudden, the plant life is going through stuff. Now you have the stuff to do that. It says it's not even raining yet, but you have what? You have water that comes from up in the ground, which would make sense because there's a whole bunch of waters that we can't even account for what's in it. And then all of a sudden we get to the 5th day where now you have fowl of the air, which doesn't just mean birds, but even things that soar through the air. So it can mean dinosaurs and stuff as well as even fish of the sea, but it even uses a term to talk about that in Hebrew, talking about Tinayan or Tinayan, you would say, and that actually stands for sea monsters. So there's dinosaurs there. Then all of a sudden on the earth, on the 5th day, you start on the 6th day, rather, 6th period of time. We don't know if these are 24 hours. We don't know if it was 1 minute. We don't know if it was billions of years, but we do know what? That this stuff comes into being. And then we have the sun, the moon, the stars that it says moves around to be able to tell us where we are on the planet. By the way, people say, oh, well, people of Kemet, they believe that the earth went around the sun. That's not true because there's something that you use today called noon. There's something that you use today called noon. There's something that again today that you call noon. What is noon? Noon means this. Noon is when you had a Netcher, she would walk around the earth and she had the sun on her head. And when she got to be right above you, you called it noon because noon was right above your head. So even the people of Kemet didn't believe what you try to say they believe, because if we look at their culture, see, this stuff is culture. And if we're honest about what they present in their own culture, through their own prism, through their own lens, we'd be able to find out very easily, very quickly, right? We'd be able to find out very easily and very quickly that they don't believe what you said they believed in. Why is it that you say that I'm wrong when I say I'm going to be accurate with somebody's culture, when it's very clear to see what they believe? So now when I start going through this, wait a minute, there's a whole bunch of people that talked about the sun going around the earth. The sun going around the earth. Matter of fact, when it comes to NASA, why does nobody admit the fact that NASA said the reason that they can't go to the moon is because they lost the technology? And they said they went up there. And I want you to comprehend what they use. They use aluminum foil. That's what they're telling you. They said they use gold aluminum foil. Now, my brother and my sister, I'm not trying to speak ill of anybody. I'm just going to keep it, but I got to keep it a buck with you. Because once again, evolution is not just with animals. It's supposed to be 6 types. You got to talk about the sun, the moon, the stars. You got to talk about space. You have to talk about the elements. You have to talk about the waters. You got to talk about everything with evolution. See, don't get stuck where they're trying to get you to be stuck at. How you doing, Sister Sheena? But my brother and my sister, I'm just going to keep it a buck with you. You're not going to tell me. This is what they want you and I to believe. How you doing, Sister LaCrystal? They want you and I to believe that the atmosphere will burn you up if you don't have the right stuff on. Matter of fact, we know what people look like coming through the atmosphere, right? And they want you and I to believe that what they did to make sure that didn't hurt you was that they came up with a new technology called gold aluminum foil. Now, I'm not the greatest of cooks. I can do a little bit of barbecuing if I put my mind to it. Not the greatest chef, but I know about a little bit of stuff with fire and aluminum foil. Right, back in the day, we used to have a broiler. We used to use that thing all the time. They don't do broilers anymore. Now they just have it as a little drawer. You can put stuff to keep it warm in and put. But back in the day, you had the broiler. Y'all remember anybody grow up with the broiler? You had the stove top, you had the oven, and then you had the broiler. You put the stuff in the broiler. This was not the same as when you barbecued. You put the stuff in the broiler on the bottom, right? And I used to try to broil everything. When I was young, when I was a teenager, and I had no patience, but also too, you learn how to broil right, man. You can make that stuff work. You might have to cook it a little bit first to make sure some of the inside stuff. But if you know how to broil, man, broiling is chef's kiss, right? So I know a little bit of something about aluminum foil, golden aluminum foil. Oh, that you still use it? Yeah. See, the one I have now, or the places that we go now, I don't really have no broiler like that, right? But I remember the broiler. You're not gonna tell me that if you leave the broiler in there, even if you put some in aluminum foil, that aluminum foil ain't gonna get jacked up. And we talking about the temperature in the broiler is what? Sometimes 500, 550, maybe you have something on 600. Right? how fast, when somebody, matter of fact, let's look this up. When somebody's coming through the atmosphere, I'm always somebody, and when they're using the rockets and the boots and all that, you want me to believe that they were able to do all this. Now, I know when you're in space and you just coasted and stuff, it's cool, right? But you want me to believe that you used the rockets and all this stuff and had all this gasoline and everything, and then you came through the atmosphere and all you needed was golden aluminum foil? I'm gonna look up something. I'll just Google something. What is the temperature when coming through the atmosphere? I just want to see. This is when you ask questions. I just ask questions. See, they don't. Oh, they don't even want to answer that. I'm going to ask you different. Let's see. When the I don't know, what do we want to call it? Let's say when the shuttle. No, should we say shuttle? What should I say? When the Let's say shuttle. I can't remember what to. Maybe we say spacecraft. Spacecraft. Yeah, that's a word that should get us. When the spacecraft comes through the atmosphere, what is the temperature? I think that's your word, right? Hopefully. Mm. They're not really answering it. That's interesting. I never knew they don't really. They got to answer it somewhere. I must just be asking it wrong. Maybe somebody else can find it for me real quick because they're not really giving me the answer to the question. I don't have enough time today to read through all this stuff. Okay, okay. Here it says the crew vehicle will see temperatures of as much as 3,400 degrees Fahrenheit, 1,871 degrees Celsius when re-entering from low Earth orbit. In low Earth orbit, right? Orbit, right? So that means it's not even they going from a higher place coming in or whatever. That's just low Earth orbit, right? If they're just going around close. So 3,400 degrees. At 600 degrees, aluminum foil I'm just saying, at at 600 degrees, I used to have some issues with the aluminum foil sometimes, right? Now there's better aluminum foil than some. We did used to get the cheap ones sometimes, right? But 600 degrees, I started having some issues if I left it in there too long. And even if it didn't fall apart, it would like melt into the bottom of the broiler, and I'd have to go in and chip it off and stuff, and have to clean and all that stuff, right? You had to be careful because the aluminum foil, the broiler is going to burn everything up in there. It's just basically the bottom, right? It's just basically where the all the stuff, especially if you had the gas oven, that's what I was using. All the gas and everything at the bottom, the gas pressure and the gas fireball, basically, that's what's heating up the oven. So if I say broil, I go past 500, 550, I'm hitting 600. Then that means that broiler, when I go underneath, I'm going straight into 600 degrees. Like you open up the broiler, whew. But they're saying that what they did to have, now I'm just asking questions. I'm not saying that I know everything. What I'm saying is you playing with me somewhat. Like you telling me you ain't even had the and forgive me, I don't even what is it? You ain't even had the Reynolds. I don't know if I'm using the right name, right? But you ain't even had a Reynolds aluminum foil. You know what I'm saying? Like you just said you came up with the gold. Like you telling me the gold aluminum go look, I've been to many different places, including some of the original things that to see the original models or what's left of them that were used to go to space, right? I've seen the ones that are supposed to be recreations in the same manner they did. You're not going to tell me that you put some aluminum foil on the bottom of something and came back into space. Don't use that as an example. Now, if you want to say straight up, we just don't want to tell you what we use, now we can have a different argument. But don't insult my intelligence, right? They're going to a certain place where it's like you're going to have to do a little better. But see, people don't want to be honest about where this stuff is coming from. And if they can keep telling you that stuff can evolve, then why can't the truth evolve? You said gold melted at what was it? You said at 2,000 degrees. I mean, that's what they say. So maybe something coming through the atmosphere, according to them, but it seems like they still got 1,400 degrees left. If gold melts, right, at 2,000, well, you talking about coming in at 3,400 degrees. Matter of fact, here's another piece that people don't want to talk about. You know, they say we can't get back up there, this and that. All right. Well, I don't know. I don't want to go too far because now I'm starting to get a little bit from evolution. I'm just trying to get you to see the mindset, right? The mindset that it takes. And the mindset that we have to have, the trust, the faith. See the faith that I'm talking about that you have to have. Nobody want to talk about it. But the faith, you said maybe check into the designs better. The foil was on lunar modules, not re-entry crafts. Okay. Somewhat true. If you go to I don't know if you probably been, right? And you probably been to many others. If you go into DC, right, and you go to the Air and Space Museum there, the aluminum foil is not just only on the part that lands, right? You can actually go into the rocket that goes up that would have to go out of Earth, right, through the same atmosphere, but probably doesn't push. Maybe we can say it doesn't push with the same force, so maybe it doesn't have the same temperature. I'll give you that. But also you look at what comes back in, and it's not totally away from aluminum foil. Now, even with that being said, right? Even with that being said, right? What is the aluminum foil supposed to be for, even when you're talking about the landing parts? And if that's your way of saying hello, by the way, when do you say hello? The design of the re-entry capsule has ceramic tiles that slow wet. Okay, sure. And also, when you go inside, there is also some of the aluminum foil. It also has some of the aluminum foil that's on the parts, but some of those parts I will grant you are supposed to be able to go away as well. But some of those parts do stay on as far as when it's coming back into reentry, right? You're dealing with. I used to be one of those people that lived at the planetarium, right, and not just the regular planetarium. My father worked really hard, and he wanted to make sure his children can go into certain things and ask questions and be able to ask people stuff that actually work at NASA, have the information in the Library of Congress, be able to go into some of the caves that they have and stuff like that we're not supposed to go into, stuff like that. But I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. Right? So granted, I can see what you're saying is that it sounds like I'm trying to say the whole spacecraft was wrapped in aluminum foil. And in that, I would have to agree with you. No, that's not the case. Right? I'll give you that much. I'll agree with you. Right now that we gotten that out the way, right? I'm still having some issues with some of the stuff because I know that sometimes some of the stuff that the rockets are using are have aluminum foil. And I know that some of the stuff that they're telling you because I've seen it for myself, right? You've seen it for yourself. I had a guy when I was a Jehovah's Witness. He was an elder and being a Jehovah's Witness. He worked for NASA. So we had many different conversations as a child about some of this stuff. But granted, I'll give you that it's a bad look if I leave it there for some, because if your mindset is to be like he's off or I don't know anything about it, then you can take it as he's trying to say everything is wrapped in aluminum foil. So I'll give you that. Right. But my next question is, once again, or not even the next question, the first question I asked, how is it that we lost technology to get up there? And I'm going to go because once again, I just said this. Thank you, Holy Spirit. We're getting away from what the point of this is, anyways. Evolution. Now, some of this stuff is getting into who's bona fides or who, let's do see whose stream goes further or whatever. Like I'm not going to do all that, right? Not today. There are times where I do that if led to, but not today. Right. There's times I've gone on people who are better scientists than I ever could claim to be, and we have conversations about this, and they can't answer some of the things, but not today. Right? Not today. All right. So if that means that you won or whatever, I don't care really about that. That's not really my intent for today. So when we're talking about these things, you said, why can't the truth evolve? That is a awesome, awesome critical thought. Yeah, like that's part of the problem is when things evolve, we get to keep saying, well, the truth evolves. And that's one of the evolutions that people don't want to talk about. I would call it the seventh evolution, but somebody else would probably say that fits into one of the six. But I would call it the seventh evolution is that and really I would say that's the first out of all of them, is that truth had to evolve. Once again, what does evolve mean? Right? Like, what does evolve mean? We talked about that earlier. Evolve means to mull over something, to think about it. So the first thing that evolved, the first evolution, if you want to be honest, was the serpent said, "Hey, why don't you eat of that tree over there?" Eve said, "No, the evolve, the thought process is what? We're not supposed to deal with that at all." Then he said, "No, no, no, no. Yah knows that on the day that you eat it, you won't surely die. You'll actually start to be like him." Now, evolve, the thought process is you're already like him. You already talked to the Holy Spirit. You already talked to the Father. The Son and the Father are one. You walk with the Holy Spirit in the cool of the day, like you were already there. But that was the evolve. But what evolves out of that conversation is what? Now all of a sudden the tree looks tempting. Wasn't tempting before. Now it looks tempting. Right? That's the problem, is that there is no evolve. There is no truth. We keep trying to make it evolve. I don't need the truth to evolve. I need the truth to be what it is. Like, at some point, can the truth be the truth? Ugh. Right? At some point, can the truth be the truth? Right? At some point, is that a rabbit? Like, how many times do we have to say that the rabbit had to come from something? And if we keep saying stuff came from something that came from something that came from something that came from something, why don't we ever get to a point where we say there's a beginning? If you have a vision for your end, but you have no vision of your beginning, you have no vision. In an endless vision is terrible, even if you have a beginning. And a vision and going towards an expected end without knowing where it came from is terrible too. That's the problem. For real, for real. Your biggest problem is that you're talking about what evolved. Right? There's no thought process. Like, once again, we say this all the work, right? We love to change words all the time. Where do you get the word universe from? What does a universe mean? None of this can be debunked if we remain awake. You seem to be sleepwalking. Like, just these are just questions. What does the word universe mean? Y'all know it because you've been with us for a while, but people don't want to have an honest conversation. What does the word universe mean? Uni means uno, right? Uni, unai, uni, one. And then verse means what? A sentence. Or if you want to say a verse is a spoken word or whatever, but it's a sentence basically. Now we like music, so we say the verse is this, whatever. We try to say that a bunch of sentences or a bunch of bars or whatever is the verse, right? But you have the uni, one, and then verse, which means that you can't have a universe without somebody who spoke one sentence. What is that sentence? Barashak bara alacham achamiyam arat. In the beginning, Alacham created the heaven and the earth. Anything that you speak out of that's the real multiverse. If it's based off of the actual verse, that's natural law, right? Coming out of the universal law. If it's based off of the universal law, which are the kingdom law, because the king spoke the universe, the single spoken sentence, into existence that you live in, that now allows you to be able to speak with authority. You call that a multiverse out of natural law. And now when these things manifest, you call it substantive law. That's why you can talk about procedural law or remedial law, or talking about law of attraction or the law of first mention, or the law of thermodynamics, or all these different laws. They have to be based off of the natural law that comes out of the one who spoke the universe into existence. This is why you cannot patent anything that you did not create. You have to modify it in order to patent it. Anything that was created, you cannot patent it. Why? Because it doesn't belong to you. That's law. Taught in your very schools, but the same people who talk about they're educated by these schools, they put so much stuff into, are the same people that tell you that I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to do something outside of natural law. Right? Watch this. And I forget what it's called. Mendes something. I think I'm talking about the wrong person. But there's a law, right? If an explosion happens, right? Let's say there's an explosion that happened. Or let's do it like this. Let's say there's a merry-go-round. and we have things attached to the merry-go-round. And we start pushing and I'm talking about the old school merry-go-round. Y'all remember the old school merry-go-round where you might go 500 miles per hour, right? The new school merry-go-round, they don't let them go that fast anymore, right? You got to mess them up in order for them to go fast. But the old school merry-go-round, they were dangerous. They were metal. It was over concrete, and people were losing lives every day. like you had to be prayed up to go to the merry-go-round back in the day. Like if somebody lost their life, you just prayed and kept it moving. Of course, I'm this is just I'm just being a jester of sorts, right? But y'all know what I'm talking about. Like back in the day, if you went there and you was like, yo, man, we going to the merry-go-round, and somebody was gonna push, and you were looking for the biggest and strongest people to push, and everybody else that was going on in there, two little babies went on the merry-go-round. You put them in the center because you knew enough about how the inertia and everything was going to flow, that very little of it was going to be in the center. So you put the babies in the center, and although they were afraid and they were getting to a place where they thought they were going to throw up, at least they were going to be safe, right? And you could watch them, even though you wasn't watching them, you were trying to hold on. Y'all remember, right? The centrifugal force. Thank you, right? But that's not exactly. I was looking for the actual law they call what I'm about to say, right? But let's say we had a bunch of things attached to this merry-go-round, and let's say this merry-go-round is going at 20 miles per hour. That's fast. But let's say it starts hitting 50. Let's say it starts hitting 100. Let's say it's hitting like 5,000 miles per hour, right? And all of a sudden, the stuff we have attached to it starts flying off. The stuff that flies off of this merry-go-round, guess what's going to happen to it? It's going to circle in the same direction that it flew off in. It's not going to, if the merry-go-round is going this way, it's not going to start circling this way. Impossible. Right? Impossibility, right? If the stuff on there is going, it's not going to start circling. It's going to have to circle in a similar fashion. And if it's in a vacuum, now they try to say now space is not a perfect vacuum. That's not what they used to say, but let's just go with what they say now. Even though it's not a perfect vacuum, it's still a vacuum. And in a vacuum, especially if there's nothing to slow it down, guess what it's going to keep doing? It's going to keep, right? In a vacuum, it's going to keep moving and nothing's going to be able to touch each other. According to what they taught us. This is what they taught, right? So you had to ask yourself questions about stuff, because once again, evolution is not just about what's on this life as far as Earth's planetary life system, but now you got to ask yourself, well, why is it that there are moons that spin the opposite way than everything else spins? Why is it that two of the planets just in this solar system spin the opposite way if it all came from the same explosion? See, when I ask these questions, and I'm not basing this off of just, this is my faith. I'm talking about this is what you taught. Is this not what you teach in school? These are your laws. This is based off of what you say is law. I'm going off of what you told me is law. So what you say is law is factual, right? Then why is it that these things spin? Because first of all, once again, the real question is, why don't we admit that these things, not that they're spinning, but also that they came together in the first place? See, it gets to be a point, at some point, right? I got to just start asking questions like, this doesn't seem to make any sense. Something's not adding up. The maths ain't mathing. You're saying this stuff evolved, right? I'm asking you, how did you got to help me out. How, if I need H2O, right? I don't know if, forgive me, I'm not great with the elemental chart, right? But you have hydrogen, you have give me a second. I gotta look it up. I'm sorry. It's not my, let's see. So at the top on the periodic table, I've got hydrogen, right? I've got hydrogen, I've got helium. Now they say that hydrogen is supposed to be a thing like kind of off to itself, even though, you could say that you got nitrogen, this, that, and other things. Okay, but I got, right? I've got helium on another side. I've got all oxygen evolved? See, like it's got to be more. Once again, remember, if this stuff is going to work, it is going to be proper scientific notation, a proper scientific experimentation, using proper experimentation stuff. Yes, you can have experimentation that comes just through your observation. You can have observational experimentation. Nevertheless, you still have to be honest about how we got there. Can you show me how that happened? You said maybe if you planted more, it could. Planted more what? If you plant more stuff, you're going to tell me how the oxygen evolved from hydrogen? Are you saying if we planted more trees, you'd be able to tell me how oxygen evolved from? I don't. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to help me. I don't get it. But you see what I'm saying? Like hydrogen. That's what they always tell you came first. Okay, trees release carbon dioxide. You need oxygen to be able to live. Okay, but once again, that's not what evolution says, though. Is my point, right? I don't know. Are we agreeing? Are we disagreeing? I'm not sure. You said the universe cooled as gases condense. Hmm. Problem with that is, though, is that gas particles, if there's an explosion, they just keep moving through a vacuum, right? I'm saying I'm asking questions, and I'm gonna come up with more questions because I'm still gonna need somebody to give me something sound. Because just because you give me something else out the textbook, which is what they do. See, our textbook and our culture and our faith, this is what we believe, and so this is what you should believe. But I'm still gonna be like, no, like, all right. So even if you're saying gas is condensed and this and that or whatever, when they condense, how do they condense? If they're supposed to be going through space out of an explosion, and we just talked about that if there's an explosion or you fall off of something, right? If there's something moving really fast and everything comes from that and everything's supposed to spread out from that, then how does it slow down and actually attach itself when you're going through a vacuum? Right? Matter of fact, if we're going to be honest about it, right, and this stuff happens, and we're talking about the theory of gravity, it depends on which version of the Big Bang you're talking about. So I'll grant you that. But how does gravity work? Because see, watch this. How does gravity work in space when at one point there was nothing in space? How does gravity work in that? You hear what I'm saying? How does gravity? No, no, no. See, because this is before we get to the tree. The tree didn't exist. Like the Big Bang didn't come out of a tree. The tree came out of the Big Bang, right? Or what we call the Big Bang. I know that it was there. Okay, everything has density. That's cool. That's not my question, though, right? I'm not coming at you, by the way, right? I'm just trying to see. I want us to really focus on this. And I apologize. I didn't really mean to come at you. I can see that. Once again, I'm kind of in pain. So if I'm trying my best. So please forgive me if I'm coming off the wrong way. Right? It's not my intent. I'm just trying to get us to see. Like we're saying, see, they'll tell you something, but it's like time out, time out, time out, time out. So now the module says that we all crashed into each other. That's not what they were saying for years. For years, they were saying either the universe was already really big, it came back into being really small, it put itself into the same thing and then had an explosion. Right? Some of it says that there was nothing that came into something. Some of it said that it's everything in the size of a period. It was the universe, and then boom, it exploded. Whatever it is. And I apologize. I didn't mean to curse at anybody in sign language. If you know what curse word that was, sorry. I'm talking about the size. They say it's, extremely small size, right? So when they say all those things, I'm just saying you got to show me. And by the way, if you had three smaller universes or solar systems that exploded, hit each other, and it caused an explosion, okay, if that's actually what happens, right? If you had three smaller universes, or three smaller solar systems, which is now the new thing that they're trying to put out there, that hit each other. And you say, we know that the Earth is therefore 14 billion light years apart because of when they hit each other. Well, how much of those light years was them actually hitting each other? Because if there were three smaller solar systems or three, there's light years in between us and Mars and light years in between us and, us and like Jupiter and stuff. So how many light years was that? And then how many times did they hit each other before they moved out? And then you tell me that some of these particles move faster than the speed of light. So how can you tell me how many light years that is? I'm just saying, when I ask questions, you'll tell me that science is not based off of faith, but you have nothing that you can use to actually tell me how a Big Bang works, because you can't create something big enough to make it fall into something that might turn into the universe. And what you guys tell me too is that a lot of it is by chance, which means that you couldn't measure it out even if you wanted to. If you say it's totally random, everything here is totally random. And see, this is when I've got to start getting into this, because now, brothers and sisters, let's be honest, we're dealing with a bunch of stuff where people are saying that everything is random. And everybody's so busy talking about, like I said earlier, that everybody's killing off each other in the name of Jesus and stuff. And look, there's a lot of people who do that foolishness. And that's why I don't worship Jesus anyways. I'm not a Christian. But nevertheless, a lot of people talking about how they kill people in the name of the God of the Bible and this and that, etc. And a lot of us don't want to be honest about this one thing. Why is it that you think you can keep saying everything's random and not expect that people are going to be treated like they're random? Uh-oh. Roll with me, family. How do you keep saying that everything's random and not expect people to treat each other like they're random? You said God is a title? No, God is a title that Germanic people use for Germanic deities to make them whatever they like them to be. And because you speak some Germanic language, you have allowed yourself to be influenced by that, and you therefore call them God. Elohim is different than God. Just like in Yoruba, they have Yorija. Yorijas do not work like God or gods, right? In Kemet, they have Netchers. They do not work like God or gods. You automatically try to say that everything is a God. No. You must recognize a deity. A deus are not the same as a god. Odin does not work. Now, once you have somebody who controls everybody, or people who are very close in family dynamic to each other, right? You might have them start using it, interchanging these terms. But we don't worship anything outside of Elohim. Elohim is a title for Yehovah. God is not a title for Yehovah. Matter of fact, in your Bible, whenever it says Lord God, if you look that up, it always means Yehovah Elohim. So that's not his title, even by if you study it. But why don't they just go ahead and put that in the book? It's not because it's your language. It's because they're hiding the name. A name is a name. My name is Kofi. And my title is technically Kohelet. Kohelet, excuse me. And if I go to Ghana, I'm still Kohelet. And really, I'd be Kohelet Kofi, right? If I go to, right, but my name, let's just do name. That's easy for a lot of people, right? My name is Kofi in Russia. My name is Kofi or Kofi in England. My name is Kofi in Canada. My name is Kofi in Brazil. My name has been Kofi when I've been to Ghana. My name has been Kofi when I've been to Eritrea, or if I've been through South America or South Africa, or if I've been through Jamaica, or if I've been through Puerto Rico, or if I've been through England, or if I've been through Italy, or if I've been through I don't know, what's the place that I went, or Belgium, wherever my name doesn't change. Just because somebody else goes, well, what's your name? Oh, well, in our language, the closest translation we have to that is this. So we'll just call you this. That doesn't mean it's my name. Right? And that's what I say. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. We wrestle against principalities, the origin of things. People don't want to talk about what is really the original mindset. So we just go, well, I use God. But see, when you say God bless America, you're not even talking about the Bible. You don't know that. See, you have an evolutionary mindset. You think that you can randomly put, or because you feel like something, or because you want to call it Latin and therefore say that means it's scientific, you want to put that on there. That's not how this works. Right? God bless America refers to the modern day Osiris. That's why he has monument to him. You call that monument, if you call it a monument or the Washington Monument, you say it looks like a pencil. But anybody who's from Kemet or is aware of how Kemet works, we know what that is. That's not a pencil. That's a phallus. It's a mock penis called an obelisk because he's supposed to be the modern Osiris. And Columbia on top of the Capitol building, she's supposed to be the modern Isis. That's why she has wings as well. And nothing is supposed to be built higher than her. And she's supposed to be able to go on top of her husband because his body was spread apart and she got back together but couldn't find his phallus, just like George Washington dies of syphilis. His phallus fell apart. And everybody born out of them is Heru. And you will find this in Memphis, and you will find this in Las Vegas, and you will find this in parts of Cali, and you will find this all over the world. You'll find it in London. You'll find it in, I believe you'll find it in Croatia. You'll find it in Russia. Because it's the same story being told. This is a Masonic belief system, but you say God bless America, thinking that's what it is, and you have on your money in God we trust, not knowing that legally speaking, the legal definition of an oath is a promise to a God or a promise to a deity, which means that now you're making a promise before their God. This is lawful stuff, legal stuff that's on there. Look up the definition of an oath legally. Look up what Washington, D.C. is by definition, not by what you think it is. Look up the actual definition of what it is in Black's Law Dictionary, not written for Black men, but written after a man whose last name is Black. And you will discover that Washington, D.C. was a territory, but it's not even a territory anymore. And is subject to Congress, and Congress has no power outside of it because according to 28 U.S.C. 300215 subsection A, the United States is a corporation. 28 U.S.C. 300215 subsection or 300215 subsection B, the United States is a board. That's why you have a president, secretary, etc. And 28 U.S.C. 300215 subsection C says that it can be publicly traded. So when you don't think of stuff as what it's supposed to be, and you keep thinking that it's random, or you don't even look to see what these people are verifying for you, you're gonna be all over the place. We have people who have a very evolved mindset because evolution, it speaks to being random. Whatever I randomly want, I can, as long as I can have it come out of thought and say that it can be recognized somewhat lawfully, I'll just go ahead and say it evolved. Right? Right? Like, right? And even Hawaii was what? Kauai, even for that, right? And even out of that, you got to understand that Hawaii technically was when King Kamehameha took over the other islands, right? That's why you have an island of Maui and Oahu and all that, because those were people, and then they ended up conquering those people. So even they have a bloody history too, right? It's not just as simple as black and white. But when we're talking about all these things, nobody wants to be honest about it. Your definition of evolve, you don't even know what the word evolve means. Evolve is a thought process, right? And so this is what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that there are animals that believe that they should come out of that they need to be better. They came to themselves as animals and said, we're going to automatically start to do things in ourselves to ensure that we create certain things and keys that we would be better in. And then we turned into even eventually different types of human beings. That's what evolution means. Look up Charles Darwin. Once again, we said his book earlier. We cited it. What's the name of the book? The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. And race means competition. At first it was animal races, right? Then it became human races that came from animal races, right? And certain ones are supposed to survive and certain ones won't because of things that are done. And out of that book, by the way, Charles Darwin's cousin writes the book that leads you guys to start studying eugenics. Like, this is the reality. This is the reality, right? Read his book and you will discover that, hey, this human came from this ape and this human came from this. That's why you need missing links. Y'all think you need missing links just to prove what they're saying. No, you got to have missing links, because you can't have all these subspecies of human and not have subspecies of apes that they came from. Right? We're not playing right. We're not playing the game. First of all, we shouldn't be playing no games, but you get what I'm saying. We're not playing the game right. We don't know what we're being taught. We're just going by whatever they say. They said this, okay, we'll go with it. They said this, okay, we'll go with it. They said this, we'll go with it. Like, we're so into random. We haven't even talked. See, and once again, random. Like, this is random. The dominion that is in right? Let's see. I want to see if I can find this out because I don't really know this. I'm being honest with you. I'm gonna see if I can look this up. Let's look this up real quick. Okay. So random for many is to talk about to run or to gallop. So people are running with this. That's all it means. People say that you are ready. It just runs. It's just running and running. There's no point of it. There's no thought process. There's no now. Meanwhile, though, evolution comes because horses look for this in other horses before they breed, and lions are looking for the dark-haired mane so they can see if you have more melanin and stuff, and therefore, the lioness likes the lion that has darker mane, or this bird is looking for this bird to do this type of dance to see how long they can do it because they want to know if you have stamina. And then these birds, when they come together, these ducks, when they come together in the water, they do this really long, drawn-out dance to see if they really can do these things, to see if you have enough stamina and all this, and then they mate for life. And this woodpecker will see if you're strong in this area, that area, because they need to make sure that you can go ahead and get food and see if your head is going to be strong enough to do all that pecking and stuff. But when it comes all of a sudden to the truth, oh yeah, it's random. It's just a random occurrence. Intelligent design, yeah, sure, but it's not designed by any creator. It was designed by intelligence itself randomly. I'm just saying, they give us these terms, you run it with. Or even if we really put random, right, the way we like to use dom now, dom is talking about a dominion. You're in a dominion that's very random, where people just run with stuff. Yeah, how can we challenge without the tools? Well, that's what we're given today, right? Yeah, exactly. Those tools. So you're in a dominion that is lawless. Doesn't care about natural law. Doesn't care about universal law. Doesn't care about the law first mentioned. See, I say something to you like, hey, the word psychology means the study of your soul. And somebody says, no, that's not how we use it today. But see, you talk about the law first mentioned. The law first mentioned means I have to figure out when it was first mentioned. How can I deal in the law first mentioned and I'm not going to even admit when something was first mentioned? How you doing, Bradley? Help me, somebody. Because that's a little odd, isn't it? I'm not even going to deal. And when something was first mentioned, why they mentioned it, what was the proper interpretation, what was the language that they spoke. But I'm going to talk to you about law. You don't even know about the law first mentioned. This is your law, by the way. You said the first law of thermodynamics is that matter cannot be created or destroyed, right? Until we found out that we couldn't find out where the energy was going, or the mass was going when it came to exploding protons and electrons, like we talked about earlier. So what do? You come up with something theoretical. You call it neutrons. Hey, there's got to be a neutral place that is going, even though we can't find any evidence of this neutral space, but we'll call it that. Right? You see what I'm saying? Like, this is evolution of truth, but truth cannot evolve. It either is or it's not. Right? And this is the thing, getting back to what I was saying. So many people talk about people killed in the name of God or in the name of Christianity or even in the name of Yahweh, whatever, right? I'll give you some of those arguments. But here's something that we don't talk about. Why did Joseph Stalin say that it was okay to begin to start offing people? I see you. Thank you, Sister Nadine. Why did Joseph Stalin say that it was okay to start offing people? You said there's an asterisk to that, and that's when you create life. That's creating matter and energy. Yeah, I guess I can roll with that to a degree. I'd have to see more what you're talking about. But why don't we admit that Joseph Stalin? Right? You can say shalom. Shalom. You're all right. So why don't we admit that Joseph Stalin? Why did he say it was all right for him to off so many people? Well, even when we say black matter or black matter or all that stuff, in a sense, or dark matter is really what we say, right? Even when we talk about that, right? That's a faith statement. We said that maybe we're trying to say that's what Yah uses to hold it in his hand. But why can't it just be at some point Yah says, I hold it in my hand? There's a reason why you can be in a position that you are and no planet, no meteor, none of that has hit you. And in all these years, you've seen it hit other planets, but you've never seen it hit you. I don't care if you only believe that the Earth's been around 6,000 years. You've never seen it hit you. Not to a point to where you've had people that the whole planet just goes away, or everybody got to go in the ground. And you can't even see with all the telescopes and everything that you have.
Fly, not get to the ground.
What? What? Everything flies and not get to the ground? Okay, I'm talking about the way the Yah says that the Earth works and stuff. You're talking about evolution, right? And when people talk about evolution, so when you're dealing with these things, you have to be real. You have to be ready for that, right? And you're sitting up here and we're having these conversations, and people can't even see where all this stuff is coming from, right? It's so weird too, because people say stuff and don't even think about it. They say, I can't wait for the sun to rise. Why do you think that people say you can't wait for the sun to rise? If you want to sit over here, bring a chair so you can sit instead of stand. But why do you think people say the sun rises? We already told you about noon from Kemet. We already told you what they believe. We already showed you that. But we don't want to be honest about it, right? Like people will tell you, oh yeah, in Kemet they did all these things because they knew that the earth was round. No, they didn't. That's somebody telling you their culture and trying to get you to believe something that they didn't even believe. Like they did not believe that. They don't have anything out there that tells you they believe that. Somebody else put that on you. And then somebody says, well, because I can't, like here's something too, you gotta comprehend. Somebody will say, because I don't comprehend it, right? And because you can't give me all the facts about or stuff that I want to deem is a fact.
There's some YouTube videos where that say who made God, like who even means.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Like who even means? He was already there the whole year. The
whole time. Yeah, he was there before time, right? Yeah, I get you. And people, but the reason why people say that is because you have a lot of people who they're trying to say to somebody. Now, I would say somebody maybe created God, but they didn't create Elohim, right? But if we're talking about that, when people say that, it's because that people have this mindset that the only reason why you believe that there's a such thing is because that somebody had to make it up. And they usually say it to control people. But here's the weird part about it. If you believe in science, and let me lower this some. If you believe in science, or you believe in, I don't even like to call it science because there's a lot of people that believe in creation that are scientists, right? It's this weird thing that we do there. But if you believe in science, or if you believe, let me put it like this. I keep saying science. If you believe in creation, or if you believe in, evolution, let's do it like that. So whether you believe in science or you believe in evolution, sorry, y'all, I'm having an issue with this, trying to get on here real quick. But whether you believe in science or you believe in evolution, right? Here's the issue that many people are having, right? Whether we want to discuss it or not, here's the issue that we're really having. Whether you believe in science or evolution, the issue that we're having is simply this. Whether you believe that science came first, whether you believe that evolution came first, regardless of what it is, one came out the other. Whether you believe religion came first, evolution came first, or not evolution. See, this is when it gets tricky. They get me in these weird words or whatever. All right, I'll just go with science. Whether you believe that religion came before science or whether science came before religion, they both came from the same place. Like, and that's something that we should just admit to. Like, that's not me trying to make stuff up. That's not me trying to win an argument. That's not me saying I am better than somebody else, right? Whether you believe that religion came and then science showed up, or science came and religion showed up, one came from the other, which means that one doesn't exist without the other. Right? Like we have to be honest. Right? Like we have to be honest. Right. Well, according to the way the person, once again, it's just a person, an artist rendering, trying to get people to comprehend from different points of view. They can see the same thing, but it does say that they both kind of exist within, right? A choir, or what people call a firmament. But once again, we have this weird philosophy. We have this weird thought process in our head that says that, hey, all the stuff that we're dealing in, or all the stuff that we're going through, whatever, like it has to come through somebody else's prism. Like, science, if you want to say science came first, fine. Science came first, and then came the thought process of there being the Most High. And by the way, monotheism precedes polytheism, right? Like, monotheism precedes polytheism, whether you like it or not. Matter of fact, even with Kemet, we went back and forth in between monotheism and polytheism, right? So, right, having one wife came before having many wives, right? I like to go back to the origin of things. Being one group of people came before being several group of people that are against each other. But see, the evolution mindset, once again, to evolve means that I'm trying to come out of what's already proper thought, right? Living your truth is not reality. Living your truth means that you have many different truths, right? Your truth is not something worried about. People coming on here, I'm hoping to never give you my opinion, because my opinion doesn't matter as much as facts do, right? So I can give you my opinion all day, but what does it matter if it's not contextual facts, right? The truth, not a truth. And if you want to look at a truth to see how we got there, to be empathetic, sure, we should do some of that. But at the end of the day, the goal should be for all of us to come into the knowledge of the truth, not a truth. Right? But when you evolve, you can keep shifting the goalposts. Right? When you evolve, you keep shifting the goalposts. And that's what happens. That's what has happened with many, is that the goalpost is, we're used to the goalpost being moved a lot. Right? We're used to the goalposts continuously being moved. And so, hey, you know, what was 7 points yesterday is not 7 points today. Well, how is that? I thought the goal line was always the goal. Somebody says, oh, today it's not the goal. Somebody says tomorrow it's not this. Somebody says the day after that it's not what you thought it was. Well, why isn't it? Why does it keep changing? Right? Why does it keep changing? I mean, we're saying that this is evidence, this is real. Why do we keep having this stuff change? Because it keeps evolving. And like I said, it gets to a point to where truth has to evolve. So now watch this. You can't be mad when that's your culture. Why? You can't be mad when somebody says, oh, that's fake news. What is fake news now? And by the way, fake news is not just used by Republicans. Fake news is used by everybody. Fake news is used by those who say that they're on the left or on the right. Fake news is used by people in other countries. Like this is the reality. Because truth is now beginning to evolve. But once again, you got to ask yourself, can truth? You said truth evolves because well, then that means that we have evolved. That we're not into the evolve. Why do you need to evolve? Change. Because you don't know something doesn't mean that it's truth. That it isn't truth. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, we're getting into dangerous territory. Well, see, truth can evolve because we don't know everything. No, like, I might not have known as a child that white actually, like, watch this, black and white, like, watch this. We change the definition of things. Black and white are not colors, right? Black is where all color comes out of, but it is not a color itself, right? White is not a color. It is the absence of color. So black and white are not colors. I get what people mean when they say you're black, right? But black is not a color. So just because I did not know that at one point in my life doesn't mean that I had that truth had to evolve. That truth always was. When we started letting the social construct of race come in and started politicizing every single thing, well, now you believe black and white is a color. Black is ultimately where all color comes out of, or even if you want to work the reverse and say it's where, if we have enough colors that come into place, it becomes blacker, right? But black is not a color. You get colors out of black, right? White is not a color. It is the absence. Matter of fact, white is clear. It is see-through. It is reflective. So if something looks like you would call it white, we used to have colors for that. Sorry. The less color something has, the whiter it becomes. It doesn't mean the purer it becomes either. And if you're talking about pure, then you're not talking about from the sense of a color. You're talking about, oh, well, it's pure in the sense that I can see through it. It's clear. You said, who cares? Well, then go somewhere where they would care, right? I don't, or they give you something that you care about. I don't even comprehend the statement, right? But I'm literally telling you why you shouldn't worry about black versus white. And he's like, who cares? Well, you should care if there's a bunch of people out here who fight about color. Then maybe you would care. If you're tired of hearing people talk about it, then maybe you should make sure that you start telling people this. You see what I'm saying? Even Caucasian, right? We use Caucasian as a catch-all for all white people, colonial construct, social construct. But Caucasians are Pacific people who are from the Caucasus Mountains. And if you know their history, they were actually enslaved pretty bad. And they were treated bad because of their genetics, right? You had people that were into eugenics that mistreated them and harmed them over time. So not everybody is a Caucasian because you have to actually be from the people of Caucasus, who are from the region where the Caucasus Mountains are. Not everybody is Caucasian who happens to have less melanin, right? But that's something that we do. That's not a truth. That's not a reality. That's just something we do. That's not the truth. It's most certainly isn't. But somebody told it to us long enough that now we just go with it. Right? So I get what somebody means when they say black. Matter of fact, there's groups of Africans, an African tribe that call themselves the slippery blacks. Kemetic people, they said that they came from black sand, and so that's why they called themselves Kemet, and therefore Kemetry, or what you call Kimi or chemistry, right? It's talking about the study of these people that are burnt by the sun, who came from the sand, which, by the way, is why you also call some of the people of Kush, who are the big brothers of Kemetic people, you call them Ethiopians, because people who are Kush, or people that are blackened by the sun or darkened by the sun. Kush actually also means, Ham is where you get Africa from, and then Kush, the son of Ham, so Ham's name means hot, right? And then Kush is about even being darkened from the sun, which is why Greeks call them Ethiopians, right? Because Ethiopians are supposed to be people who are darkened by the sun. What do you say?
So the story of our, I don't remember the name, but when you remember when we watched that movie where we had Egypt and someone got thrown into the well by their 12 or 8 brothers.
Oh, not into the well, into the or into the, like, they sold them into slavery. And that was happening in Kemet. You gotta get your face together, sir.
So he was Ethiopian?
No, Joseph is one of us. He married a Kemetic woman. I was saying that Kemet, or what they call Egypt, I was telling them that Kemet and Cush is Kemet's big brother. So Moses' wife, she was Cush. Joseph, he married a woman from Kemet. And ultimately, all of us left together. So ultimately, all of us went into the wilderness together. So all of those who went in together, they became Israel, because Israel doesn't just mean that you're only one group of people only and nobody ever admit. It means all of us were family. You can. That's why Israel can also be those who are grafted in. So not everybody who's an Israelite might be an Israelite by blood, but if they are going to go in, Revelation chapter 7 tells us that Israel has to be sealed. The 12 tribes are people, but then also it tells us even those who aren't part of Israel, they get to come in as well. So it's just, I'm talking about something slightly different. But yeah, that was a great catch. I am talking about that area of the world, but I'm talking about several groups of people at the same time. Right. But you had to recognize some of these. Right. Like the only reason why we think black, white, etc. is a color because people wanted you to believe that there was such thing as a pure color. So they told you that black was the worst color, and they told you the white. That way they could have one black, one drop rule, and they could say, well, if you're this shade of brown, or if you're this shade of, what they try to do, yellow and red and all this stuff. If you're this shade of this shade of that, we get to say that you're worse or you're better. And that obviously is not Yah's will, right? But that's an evolutionary mindset. And people don't ever want to admit, like, why did Adolf Hitler decide that it was okay to do what he did? Nobody wants to talk about this, but why did Adolf Hitler not want to talk about, or why did he say it was okay for him to do what he did? He didn't say it was because he believed in the word of Yah. He did believe that Ashkenazis were not the actual Israelites, but he was using that, focusing on that so he could try and do disgusting, despicable things to a people and treat them like they were property or less than. Right? But he did what he did because he said he learned about evolution. Why don't we discuss that? Because it makes it look bad. So now we got to say, now they'll come up and they'll be like, well, Adolf Hitler did one speech and he had a cross. One speech where he had a cross behind his head. So that means he was a Christian. Even though I'm not a Christian myself, but he had one cross for one speech. You see what I'm saying? Like, of course, that doesn't even make sense. And if you look at the stuff, he was looking for anything of any religion and stuff to back up his claims that he was their God. Remember, he's German. The word God in German that's where you get that from. God, it could be whatever you want it to be. So he was their Germanic deity at the time. At least that was the propaganda that they used to be able to allow everybody to say that what he was doing was all right. Same kind of propaganda they used in North Korea, by the way. Right? Same kind of propaganda that they've used in many places. Same propaganda, if we want to be honest, they used in Kemet to get a bunch of Kemetic people to say it was okay for the Pharaoh to do whatever he wanted to do at certain times. I'm not saying that he was heinous all the time or whatever, or she at the time was heinous all the time, whichever dynasty we're talking about, or male or female. But let's give it a buck. They did a lot of stuff that was wild, but they got to get away with it because they got to say, well, I'm the embodiment of Ra on earth. And so people roll with it. You still watching your last page, Prodigy? Okay. Like they didn't want us to. They didn't want us to. You see what I'm saying? Like people don't want you to know. They'll talk about, oh yeah, he had a cross behind his head. Why don't they tell you that evolution was what he used? Why don't they tell you that about Joseph Stalin? Joseph Stalin killed or offed more people, right? Joseph Stalin caused more chaos to cause people to lose human life than Adolf did. And he said he was going to school to be a preacher, just like Charles Darwin was. Are you catching the similarity? And I meant to say this earlier to finish up. No, he didn't. I can't say what. I'm not supposed to say the word for. I'm not supposed to say that word because it gets you in trouble online. So I'm saying they offed somebody instead. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, all right. So yeah, but Adolf. Actually off less people than Joseph Stalin did. Joseph Stalin did it to his own, too. Right? It wasn't just people that he said were separate. Sure, did he use that against Ashkenazi people as well to do bad things to them? But he also did that to his own. Right? And he did it to his own, trying to, and he said once he learned, he went to school, and I'm sorry, I got mixed up, sorry. Charles Darwin, by the way, he didn't become an atheist. That's a lie too. Charles Darwin was a lunatic. Now, some people say you try to call him crazy. No. I'm saying Charles Darwin was an actual lunatic. You know what a lunatic is? There's somebody who worships the moon. right?
Worship them.
Well, that's what people do when they do Easter. Easter comes from Ishtar, remember? And Ishtar, she was a woman who said, by the way, a woman of color, or what you might even call a black woman, before somebody tries to say it's white versus black. That's not what I'm saying, right? But Ishtar was a woman, remember, that she said she came from the moon and an egg. And she said that her son Nimrod, who she actually got, well, I won't say that part to you, but it was her son Nimrod. She tried to say that he was he was the sun and she was the moon. And then they gave birth supposedly through his rays coming to meet her while she was still on the earth. She said that they had a child named Tammuz. Tammuz ended up getting killed in a boring accident. So a pig, not like a Pumbaa, like a pig, they got at him and they hurt him. And or hurt him when he was their son when he was hunting. So, but a lot of people worship the same thing, and so those people in Charles Darwin's time, and even before then, they were referred to as lunatics. So that's why you think of lunatics as being crazy, right? So Charles Darwin, this is a religious thing coming from a religious model of people who do this worshiping of mother, father, deists or deities or nectars or gods, etc. And the same thing that you do with George Washington and the goddess Columbia, Washington, D.C., right? It's the same mindset and the same thing going over and over and over and over and over again. Sarah, don't put your hand on that. It's hot.
What?
I mean, okay, but all right. I don't know why you're playing with it. Right? So we have to be honest about it, right? So when we're talking about Joseph Stalin, why don't you talk about evolution? Matter of fact, let's take it outside of just what we call white people or whatever. What about Papa Doc? Papa Doc, Katie, he told you evolution. He said he used a lot of belief systems, but he believed that he was better than others. It was okay for him to off other people because of evolution. Over in Africa, Idi Amin. There's many others, right? But Idi Amin said that he realized that he was better than everybody else. Now, he did keep some of his religion and stuff around, but people make the assumption too that people believe in evolution and don't believe that they use their spiritual guides to tell them why it's okay that they've evolved better than everybody else. Matter of fact, what do you think a pharaoh was telling you when they said that they're a human being, but they're a neter in human form? What do you think they're telling you? They're telling you that I am the embodiment of something that you're not. They're telling you that they are a Christ, so to speak, in a sense, right? That they're a Christ. So we just go, yeah, the pharaoh this and the pharaoh that. Some of these pharaohs you don't want no parts of because they would have mismanaged you whether you were an Israelite or not. You hear what I'm saying? So like we got a lot of people that are out here talking about a great many deal things and they're not sticking to the stuff. When you're talking about evolution, why don't anybody tell you about manifest destiny? That's part of evolution. Or the lost cause. That's part of evolution. Or women aren't allowed to be considered to be human beings and therefore they don't have the right to vote. That's evolution. We're talking about Charles Darwin's book. We're talking about 1859. We're talking about eugenics. That comes right after it. Written by Charles Darwin's own cousin. He said, hey, cuz, I like what you did with that. I'm going to go ahead and use your example and we're going to keep on moving. Right? Like this is all stuff that is considered to come out of evolution, but nobody wants to talk about those things. Why does nobody want to actually even consider if these things that I'm saying is real? Or why is it that nobody will even teach you about these things? You have to ask yourself that question. Why is it in all your schooling nobody ever told you what Washington, D.C. actually stands for? And that George Washington is supposed to have evolved to a place to where now he is your God. And people think I'm lying. Once again, look up these terms that I'm saying. I'm not just randomly saying this stuff. Look up these terms. Look up to see if you can find out what an oath is legally, a legal definition of an oath. And when you find out that an oath is a promise to a God or a promise to a deity, I'm just saying, like, don't look at me like I'm crazy. Right? That's all I'm saying is don't look at me like I'm crazy. Like I'm crazy. Like I'm cray-cray. And I'm just telling you what yourself said. Don't look at me when I tell you Washington, D.C. is not even a territory anymore, but you won't look up the law. Look it up and then tell me if you need to ask yourself, why is it that you even think that Washington, D.C. is a capital when the United States has no capital? Because corporations don't have, I'm going to leave it alone. Corporations aren't real, or corporations are real, but they're fronts. They're real fronts, right? The corporation might have a place to where they are protecting their capital, but they don't have capital because the corporation is not a country, right? Why is it that London is not under the laws that England's under? Why is it that if the king or the queen of England goes into London, that they have no jurisdiction there? Have you ever thought about that? We keep talking about this stuff and how stuff evolves, but that's what I said. The danger is that at a certain point, we got to admit that, what's really starting to evolve is truth, and truth should never evolve.
Your number shower is a glitch with 100 letters now. I mean, numbers now.
No, it's just because I took a screenshot. So in the screenshot, it's got an old time underneath the time, so you can't see it that well. But you can see the time right there. And right. Right. You see what I'm saying? Like we're not even willing to have that part of the discussion. Like nobody's telling us this stuff, but then I say, like this system is sus. And you might want to look into some of this stuff, and you might realize that like a lot of it is not exactly what they're telling you. I tell you, like you might want to look into this stuff because a lot of it is not what they're telling you. And people say, no, that's it. You're wrong. You blah blah. Like you got to recognize. You bet. What was it? You better recognize. You best recognize. Whatever way you want to say it, you need to come into a recognition that you've been sold a lot of nonsense, and it comes from an evolutionary mindset. You can be very random. People keep saying this doesn't even make sense. It doesn't do this, doesn't do that. It doesn't have to with an evolutionary mindset. Because all you have to do is give a theory as to what somebody came from. You never have to deal in fact. All you have to do is give a theory on where something came from. Did you catch that? As long as you give a theory, it never has to be fact. Right? It doesn't have to be fact.
Someone says shalom, and then it says SALOM.
You're trying to say Solomon, like when I say Solomon, you're trying to say the same thing. You're saying Solomon, saying shalom to you. Right. But that's the biggest point. Like nobody was talking about like truth evolves, but that's a problem. Now look, if you're saying that you're trying to say through with a different cultural reference point or a different cultural inference or whatever, okay. Like you do what you do. I'm just trying to tell you, truth should not evolve. Truth shouldn't be changing. I don't even know. Watch this. Can I put you on the spot real quick? Can I ask you to do something? I didn't tell you I was going to ask you to do anything. Can I ask you to do something for the people? Okay. I'm going to ask you to do kicks and punches, okay? All right? Just a few. I know you're tired. You didn't stretch it. We won't do much. I'm going to show you guys something. If you're on the podcast, I do apologize. I know you can't see. Right? You're going to be right here. Or where you going? Where you going? Oh, no. I'm in front of people. Can you do it on the camera? You just do some easy ones, like some front kick, maybe side kick, and maybe some jab, okay? That's it. Right? I want to show people something real quick. Because people, if we're not careful, once again, they're teaching us that it's okay to change this and change that and all this stuff or whatever. And we shouldn't be. We should not be at all. So I want to show you guys something. I don't know. Hopefully you'll be able to see Mr. Solomon here correctly. I got a different stand than what I would normally. For those who are still with us on TikTok, on YouTube, you should be able to see him fine. I'm gonna try to move to the side, right? And then we're gonna be accurate. I want to show you the accuracy of something. You ready? And then I'm gonna give you some facts along with it, right? I want you to stand where they can see you on the camera. Oh, I can't really stand up right now. All right. Y'all can see him okay? Sir, move over. Where they can see. Make sure they can see. Can they see you all the way over there? Okay. No. All right. So no matter what it is, right? I'm gonna show you. He's gonna show you something, right? He's just waking up, right? He hasn't stretched, he hasn't done anything, but he's gonna help teach you today. All right, you ready? Okay. Do you want to do? You know what? So let's do this. Watch this. Exercise number 1. Okay. So no matter what, this is always exercise number 1. Right? You can try and say, well, there's a bunch of exercises and there's this, and what if I wanted to be exercise? No. That's always exercise number 1. Okay, you ready? What about, let's go ahead and do lechon. You bet. All right. Now go back to rest. Let's try this again. Watch this. Lechon. What do you guys think? Now do it for real. Do it for real with all your energy. You ready? Okay. Serious, because I'm gonna ask you a question about what you're doing. All right. I know you're waking up, but you decided you wanted to help teach, so we're gonna be ready to teach. You ready? Okay. Lechon.
Sir.
Okay. Now, what do you think what would you call that in English? And I can't read everybody's comments. I'm trying to come up in front. But what he just did, right? What would you guys call that when he came up and he said, "Sir," what would you say that is? What position would you say that is? Attention, right? So even though you know there's attention, this and that or whatever, it needs to look like that. It should look like that every time, right? So let's try it again. Lechon.
Sir.
Ibe.
Sir.
Right? Ibe is what he does when it says we're getting ready to do something, right? Now do this for me. Right leg back, fighting stance. Smoke. Okay, now watch this. He got a somewhat strong stance. He kind of showing off a little bit now because he's feeling himself. I'm glad he is, right? So keep doing what you're doing. I'm gonna do something. Are your hands up? Now that's fighting stance. Now put this one back where it was. Now look, he can still put some damage in. Do a jab, right? Do a jab up here. Okay, do a jab again. So he can still do some damage. Do a jab again, but because his hand's not up, he can get caught, right? So he's not in the proper fighting stance. Somebody could say, "Well, that's fighting stance." No. In the culture, in the kung fu that he's doing, right? That's not accurate. You see what I'm saying? Right? Okay, don't get ahead of me. I know you're ready, right? And I'm glad you're looking sharp. So you want to do that? Let's do a few more, okay? So get back, right leg back, fighting stance, move. All right. So now you see fighting stance, right? You might have to remind him of certain. No, you're fine. You're fine. You might have to remind him of certain things, right? But he's got it down. No, now let's go like this, right? Okay. So now I think you got enough room for this. Let me make sure. Move back just a little bit. Fighting stance. Okay. So, and be aware of your surroundings. All right. Give me 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Do it again. All right. Now, so I might call it 1, 2, 3. What could we call this? What? Put your hand back up. What do we call that punch?
Jab.
So you call it jab. What do you call it?
Reverse punch.
Reverse punch. We could also call it a straight punch, right? And also, what do you call this kick you were doing?
Front kick.
Front kick. Okay. Some people might call it a push kick, front kick, whatever, right? But at the end of the day, there's a truth behind it, right? Now, all these things that he's doing, right? There's a truth to it. Now, somebody could say you just randomly do this stuff or whatever, but why am I correcting it once again? Put fighting stance. See, so when you see that his hand, right? His hand came low. I was able to before, right? Now, what you got to do? Keep it what? Strong, right? So if he doesn't have to be tense, but if he's not tense enough, he can get hit. Now somebody can say, "Oh, well, I fight like this and blah blah whatever." Well, guess what? You do all that or whatever in the style we're doing. Like we can't wait for you to do that. Here's another truth. Some people will say like, "Oh, well, when I get angry, I fight better." Oh no. Like we want you to get angry. You get angry enough, you're gonna lose who you are, right? And you'll be so busy talking about you trying to win the fight and do this stuff or whatever, but you're missing some of the basics. So he's had to learn in sparring to not get so upset that he can't follow instructions. All right, now give me a round kick. Excellent. You one more time? All right, cool. Right, now it's important, and by the way, he has to know all these fundamental truths. You see, he has to know all the fundamental truths. They don't get to evolve, because watch this. It's been the same side. Do round kick again. Right, now show me side kick. You see that? Now show me front push kick, front kick. Okay. Right. Show me back fist. Whichever way you want to do it, doesn't matter. Okay. Show me jab. All right. Now we're gonna put them together in a second, right? I'm gonna give him different commands, but I'm trying to show you guys, right, that he needs to have all these things together, right? He needs to know them all. They got to be fundamentally sound and accurate. Because if he gets in the fight, he ain't got time to practice at that point to try to figure out how he can make this the truth and this can be the this and this can be the that. We don't have time at that point. It's time to go, you know. But here's the deal, and all that stuff. Once again, show me round kick again. So that round kick, he's been doing kung fu for how long? How long you been doing kung fu?
5 years.
Since you were how old?
2.5 years old.
So he's been doing kung fu since he's 2.5, right? Since 2.5, when you were 2, was your round kick was still a round kick, right? And when you were 5, was round kick a round kick? And when you were 7, was round kick a round kick? And you're 7.9, so soon you have your born date, right? Is round kick still a round kick? Okay, and all those versions of him, he might have learned how to do something better. He might have gotten stronger. He might have more force behind it, right? But the round kick is always a round kick. This is what I'm saying, is that people are trying to say, well, the truth evolved. No. The kick is the same. Your abilities, sure, can change. Your mindset on it can change. Matter of fact, it might get worse. There's some years that it came down because I wasn't on him as much. And so his round kick wasn't as great as it used to be. He couldn't do it with both legs as great as he can now and all that stuff, but he's getting back into it. And as he gets older, right, you can see that some of that stuff is back. He's got his balance and all that, right? And it's strong, right? Can you? Oh, he even went higher than my hand. See, so like you see, it's back. It's getting stronger. He can even go higher when he puts his mind, but he has. I'm not gonna push him. He hasn't stretched and stuff yet. But I'm just saying all these different things, right? Like we don't comprehend what's going on. We just go, oh, okay, like it's this and that. And once again, look at this. So some of you would just say, well, it's a kick. It's just the truth is it's a kick. Do a front kick again. Look at the difference. No. You look face the screen, and look at the difference between them. Front kick. Okay. Round kick. Okay. Side kick. Right? Like each one is different and each one has a different responsibility. But if we're not careful, somebody will come across and say, oh, well, those are just different evolutions of no, those are different kicks. Are you catching it? I'm trying. You see what I'm saying? Are you catching it? Like each one is different. Each one comes from a different place, has a different purpose. And if you're not careful, what happens is with evolution, they're trying to say we're all one because we literally came from the same, rather than believing that we're all one because really we help each other in different ways that we're created, right? His jab is not the same as the same. Watch this. Let's do one last one. And thank you so much for showing the people. I appreciate you. Move up a little closer. Okay. And get in fighting stance. We're going to try the one from Tuesday. We didn't get a chance to go over too much yesterday because I was hurting some, but you remember that one we practiced a little bit yesterday? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to show you, right? So I'm going to go piece by piece just to show you once again, he has to know that each one, no matter what, is true. Okay. So give me half turn, side kick, and then landing, yeah, and then what? And then punch, right? Okay. Or you can do that one too, whichever one you feel. So now put all of them together. Now each one, we just showed you 4 to 5 different moves. Each one is different. So now now go ahead, put all of them together for me real quick. Oh, almost fell on that side kick. Be careful. All right, now I can't move the way I want to, so I'm not doing no kicks right now. But I will. I want to just show you guys why he's doing what he's doing. I don't know if y'all even see it on TikTok or not, hopefully. Right? So fighting stance, okay, now you ready? I'm gonna have you come in front more so they okay. All right, you ready? So watch, every move has a purpose. So give me half turn inside the kick. Boom. Okay, and then what? Going to the side, and then what? Punch. And then you can kick. Right. I don't know if you guys can see all that, especially on TikTok. But then we're in a very small space. So thank you, sir. I appreciate you. I don't know if you want to sit or if you just want to wait. I'm almost finished where you can get that if you just want to wait, or if you want to sit down, you're more than welcome to sit again. Right. But all that I was trying to show you is that each one of those has a name. Can you catch all the stuff we've been talking about today? Did you get it? Did the Holy Spirit, did she show up the way I was hoping she would? I hope she did. She did in my mind, but it's not just for me, right? But hopefully you got the reference points, right? Hopefully you see what the point of it is, right? You can sit up there and be like, oh no, this is this, and I'd like it for it be this, and I'd like it for it be that. It's like there are certain things that it needs to be, it is what it is, right? Like it needs to be, it is what it is. Okay, go ahead. Here's some here too, if you want. Right? But it's certain things, they have to be what they are. Like, we can't argue. Like I said, he came up, right? And you saw that he had, and a lot of people, they box like this, right? And in boxing, maybe you can get away with some of that, especially because you're doing, head movement and things, but really even in that, right? If you, especially peekaboo stance or whatever, like Muhammad Ali got away with that, and some people can get away with that because they're faster with their reflexes, right? But technically, your hand's up, right? And so he has his hands up, he's tilted he's pushed to the side more as well, because the less of, if he's like this, open up, there's more body to hit, but he turns to the side so that there's less body to hit, right? And then when you're going through, like a jab is always a jab. Even if you call it a one, we call it a point, one time one, we call it a jab, we call it a push, or jab. Oh, then we had, reverse punch or straight punch. All these different things. We didn't even get into hook or uppercuts and stuff, but like all these things, they have certain things. If I'm going to tell them, okay, let's work on this move, right? Then what did I do? I told him, hey, give me half turn. He knows what half turn is. Half turn doesn't mean turn the opposite way. It means you turn the specific way. Every time you can do half turn. It's got to be the same, right? Why? Because I'm trying to tell him something to get this exercise across. So even if we didn't practice it in front of you, I got to told him, hey, Solomon, in your mind, I want you to think half turn, side kick, slide to the right, mob, kung bu, either straight reverse punch or round kick with the reverse leg. Some of you might not know anything that I just said, but he does, because every time we do that, it's always the same, right? It's always the same. You saw that? Right? No matter what we do, it's always the same. Always, right? And the second that we go away from it is the second that we can't rehearse it correctly, or the second we start saying, well, now look, like if you're doing Wing Chun, like sure, Wing Chun is different. And you could talk about punches coming more so from here and different things like that, right? Or if you're talking about a boxing match, sure, you want your jab to be there, but your jab might look different. You might put more shoulder into it, things like that. There's certain things that somebody is not necessarily looking for, especially if you're not looking for somebody to kick or do certain things like that. You might do some stuff to where you're not even hurting each other, right? You're doing more judo or doing more, Brazilian jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. Like it depends, but each style has a truth. Each culture has something that's specific. And I can't just sit up here and be like, hey, he gonna do whatever just because, right? Or we're just gonna do all this stuff. He got to learn first the style. Like, does he do some things from time to time that are not in Kung Fu? You want to say you're welcome? I know people have been saying thank you. All right, yeah, you did a great work. People appreciate it, right? So I'm not going to say that he's never learned any other style, or that no other style has any relevance, or that if he wanted to pick up another style later on. I just know that if we're going to do something in Kung Fu, or if he's going to do a Sichuan, which is like a bunch of different, things that he can learn, to where he can start practicing, where somebody's doing one set of punches and kicks and he's doing another, so they can get used to hitting each other. Or if it comes to like his gear, like even some of the people got in trouble last time when last Friday we had Kung Fu, and a lot of them didn't have their gear on, and part of their whole gear, right? They left a part of it. What does their whole gear include? It includes the cup, right? So he's always obedient. He puts on the cup. A lot of guys, especially because they get there late, they're rushing, and so they don't want to take time out to just go in the restroom and put on the cup or whatever, right? It's different than having regular underwear on as well. But if you're going to be fighting and kicking, all it takes is one time, and what happens? You're going to remember for the rest of your life that you need that cup, right? So rather than go through the painful experience, just put it on. Just be whole in your gear. Sure, have your shoes on, or your shin guards on. Have your breastplate on, right? Have your helmet on. Have your gloves on, but make sure you got that cup on, right? Like make sure you got it on. It's part of the uniform. And so the shifu, right, his master, when we had class,
But we're not ready for the elbow pad.
yeah, not ready for the elbow pads yet. Yeah. So when when master, when his rabbi, in a sense, right, we're talking about Chinese terms. So when Shifu said, "Where's your cup?" All the boys just about had to go get their cups on. Solomon didn't. Why? Because he's got to be whole. He got to be holy. He got to have every piece of armor on. All it takes is one. As a matter of fact, the first time we did it, right? Because we were running out of time and stuff. Try to do it without the cup. And guess what happened during the fight? You remember? We won't say it, but it wasn't the greatest experience, right? So those are things that are there, like to protect us. And
got hit close.
You got hit close, yeah. And it was a reminder, right? Mm-hmm. And it hurt a lot. Where if you had been wearing it, even though it wasn't on it, the cup would have still protected you. Even though you didn't get hit in your stuff. Ultimately, and that's why I was saying we don't need to go into details about it, right? But I'm just saying, like, you have to be ready. You have to be ready for those things that could happen. Oh, hey, babe, how you doing? My wife is on, the Honorable Maya. Check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist. Biologist by degree. You see it? You say hi, Mom?
Hello, Mom.
So these are things that we just want to make sure we put in place, and it can't be your truth or I feel like or this and that or whatever. No, there's the truth. There's a truth. You saw her. She said she saw you. Hold on. She said she saw you. So there's a truth. There's a truth. There's the truth. And we're trying our best to do a whole bunch of stuff. I want to do my style of punch. I want to do this type of punch. I think reverse punch looks like that. I think that the kick looks like this. I have to deal with this one a lot on this, even though he's much better now. Because we used to try and practice stuff for a while, for about a year. I feel like we were fighting sometimes because he wanted to tell me everything about what Goku and Vegeta was doing and what One Punch Man was doing, or what oh gosh, I don't know why I'm forgetting this one. My man that stretches off the that has the hat. That has a hat and has a cape. You used to wear the hat, the straw hat.
Oh.
What's his name? I can't remember his name right now, but whichever one, right? Whichever one. Thank you, Luffy. Is that how you pronounce it again? I can't remember. Is it Luffy? Luffy? I think it's Luffy. Yeah, Luffy. So I get all these things where it's like you see him, and he's pretty athletic. So he'd be doing these kicks, and he'd be doing these. He'd be turning in the air. He's actually doing turns in the air and still kicking stuff. He teaches himself a lot of this stuff, because even when I'm fully able to move my leg and everything, I can't do this stuff on the level he does. So, but I have to always bring him back to, okay, that's great, but then look at your jab, look at your hand down. So we spar somewhat, playing obviously, but we spar somewhat. But even in this playing, I have to always tell his Shifu says all the time, don't practice how to practice. Do what?
Practice how to fight.
Now say it without your thumb in your mouth.
Practice how to fight.
Exactly. Don't practice how to practice. You practice how to fight. We're not practicing practice. We're practicing fighting, right? And you get it ready in practice. And we must become practitioners, because everybody wants us to become practitioners of something that's not even what we want. Okay, with one piece. Thank you. Yeah. So okay. All right. So everybody wants us to be practitioners. You see that? Sister Austin, well done. So a lot of us want us to become practitioners of things that are not for us. And ultimately, we need to make sure these are things that are our culture. And we get to say what our culture is. We get to be the determiners. Really, it's not even us, it's the Most High. But we get to determine it. And in a situation where you're letting things evolve, including the truth, then there is no justification for any actions. And is that not the case? I wanted to give one more. I would be this one. Thank you. Okay. So I would be remiss if I didn't do this. Holy Spirit showed me this rising, or led me to this rising, and told me we need to even put this out there. Because even you got the whole thing of video game culture as well. A lot of people don't think about it, but even a lot of anger and stuff and frustration that comes because people are even thinking of that and how video games evolve. And the problem with it now is that technology, like it's an escape, but what's become an escape has become what people evolve in their thinking in. And I watched these two. I'm going to watch more of it as a rabbit hole, and I don't necessarily think anybody needs to go down this rabbit hole. But I was led to this. I want to be complete in this. I only had time to look at a couple of these situations, but there was one situation, one or two, maybe three. Oh well. Anyways, there's this one. The Holy Spirit wants she'll bring it to our remembrance, and bring it back to the family. But there was one thing where there was a guy who was playing video game. And this is when you got to be careful about when reality is escape, because now this is the next evolution, not just evolution of the physical nature that people keep talking about. This is evolution of thought. People, once again, what does the word evolve means? How one thinks, how one's operating in their mind. So there's a guy in Japan, or no, two guys in China. They didn't hang with each other, but they knew where the other person stayed. And all they did, they only really knew each other for playing video games. Now, if you play video games, that some of the games, they have these pieces or these parts that you can get, these weapons and stuff you can get, and a lot of people want them. And so if you find something that's rare, people will sell them and stuff. People will buy them like for a lot of money because people are into virtual reality that much in these metaverses and things. So one of the boys had, or maybe he was a young adult, but somewhere around teenage to 20s. He lets one boy borrow. He gives him one of his weapons that he has and says, you can borrow it for, I don't know, a month or something like that, and then give it back. The other boy's like, cool, no problem. He's excited. Then when he gets it, he finds out that this piece that the boy has given him is worth like at least $1,000, 1,000 US. I forget what it was in the conversion, but it's like something around 1,000 US. And with inflation, I forget what it would be today, but it's like 1,000 US. And so somebody saw him with the weapon on the game and asked him if he could buy it from him. So the boy, not realizing how much it was worth, he basically sold the weapon. So then, of course, the guy who he plays the game with, who knows where he lives, but they never hang out, the guy who plays the game with, he, of course, at some point says, hey, can I get that weapon back? Time is up. And the boy says, hey, just keeping it real with you, I sold it. I didn't realize how much it was worth. Boy, of course, the boy who lent it is extremely angry. He says, well, can we at least split the profit? And the boy who sold it, basically just kind of ghosted him after that. So he tries to go to the police, and the police say, well, it's virtual property. It's not even real property. They probably changed the law because of this incident since. But at the time in China, they said, well, this is, and in the district thing, when they were like, well, this is virtual, and we don't really deal with virtual property because it's not real. And so guess what? So the boy decides he's going to take matters into his own hand, and he takes a sharp object and goes to the boy's house and extinguishes his existence, at least in this plane. And it gets to a point where, once again, like virtual truth, right? Like when is truth, or like when is it worth it, or like when is even like just being honorable in what you do? Honestly, opposite, the boy lied, but when do we get so angry and frustrated about a game that we move outside of it? Well, we can say contractual law, but once again, even with that, still, like, we're dealing with Chinese law in whatever district and whatever city law that we're dealing with as well, as far as how their magistrate would handle things and all that. So I don't know. It would be exactly the same way, but you would think that'd be contractual law. But the police, once again, probably not knowing even that they could be verbal contract, they don't think about it. But either way, you got to realize that somebody extinguished life. They put out the flame of what could have been somebody's life. And I think they have to go do 40 years before they're eligible for parole. And we're talking about a youngin', because they're either a teenager or early 20s. right? So you gotta see, like, people are taking this stuff that evolves to another level that we shouldn't take it to. And then lastly, there was a guy, first guy I actually studied about earlier today. He was somebody who played video games, and well, this is not necessarily about a video game, but he was somebody playing a video game with and got caught in. He actually admitted to a offing his own family. He was, I forget what the game is. It's basically a Chinese version of a 2005 game. He's not Chinese. This was in America. Or no, this was in Canada. He got caught in Toronto. So I'm not sure where the other people lived that were part of his gaming community. But there was a game that was really old and from the 2005. It's not really out anymore, but some people still kept it and play it with each other. So they were playing this even in, like, I think this happened in 2018, 2019, maybe even 2020. And he is somebody comes on one day. Well, I mean, if it's too much for you, just go ahead and be patient over there. You haven't done any push-ups, any sit-ups, any stretching. You can pray. You probably prayed already, but you can do a bunch of stuff and you can be patient. Okay, thank you, sir. You don't have to sit right here the whole time. Here's some water if you need some more water. Or if you want this kind, you can have some of this. Right? But so the guy, he basically admits to offing his family, which was his mother, his father, his sister, and grandmother. He was, I believe, Indian, and not Native American. I mean, Indian from India. And come to find out, like, the people of the group, they started trying to figure out, because he would randomly say really violent stuff anyways. And it seemed like he was getting worse, but they thought it was just like part of his behavior. They thought that's who he was, whatever. And they thought, like they thought it was like him joking. It was weird joking, but whatever. But then one day he just basically is like, hey, I off my family. Probably had to turn myself in at some point for being a weak, whatever. It basically like I'm weak-minded, or I'm not as strong or tough as I should be. I'm a weak version of a male, and this and that or whatever. And then they were like, and then and the person was like, man, stop, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And the guy, to prove it to him, showed him some really disturbing images. Now they don't know what his parents look like, so they thought maybe he got it from somewhere else, but then it hits him like, and they start asking each other, and they're like, yeah, he showed me images of this and this and that. So they actually, dox him, or what we would call, they look for information about him online. And they eventually find out, I think they find his Facebook account that's attached to it. And then they find out like he's in Toronto and this and that. And then they ask him about stuff or whatever. And once again, he starts explaining like why he did it. And he starts saying, well, I'm a weak-minded individual and I'm a weak version of a male. And he keeps saying the same thing over and over again. And he says, I couldn't cut it in college. I didn't do well. I got bad grades, and for his family, that's a big deal. So in his mind, he says, since I'm getting bad grades, I didn't want them to think that I was a terrible version of a male. And he keeps just saying it over and over again. So they asked the Toronto police. They found out his address and everything. They said, hey, could you go by and look for this family? We think he's at this address. And so they go to do a wellness check. And on their way, the police doing a wellness check, they go on to talk to him again. And they're like, man, well, you shouldn't have off this and blah, blah, but why would you even do that? I guess they're trying to get him to stall to stay on there while the police are coming. And he basically says, well, I went through all this stuff and I didn't believe, I started seeing that I wasn't getting certain results. And I started studying some stuff. And he says, I came across some stuff that led me to become an evolutionist. I'm not saying all evolutionists do this, right? But I just want you to realize, people keep saying about people that believe in what we believe in and what they did. They don't tell you there's a lot of people doing this stuff because of being evolutionists. He said, when I realized that there was no higher power, and he said, I also realized there was nothing after life, no afterlife. He said, I became scared. I didn't want, since this is the only life that I lead, to be known as this weak male. And I didn't want my family to have to live with dealing with a weak male. And so because of that, he said, I basically got rid of him. because I couldn't cut it. He said they think I go to school every day, to college every day. He said I go to an arcade and then I walk the mall basically for 4 hours every day, 4 or 5 hours. I told him my classes are short because basically I got kicked out of school, or I just really he quit. So he's like, I stopped going to school. So I just go to this place. And he said, basically, I've been planning this for a while. And I won't go into what he did to him, but pretty gruesome stuff. And he even planned it out to where, once the sister and father, so the sister who's young and the father who's stronger were left. It was just the mother and the grandmother when they left. And then sister came, and then father came back late from work. And he did it because he said of the fear that he had of this one life and nothing that could be forgiven. And all he would be thought about is this person who couldn't do well, which, by the way, even if you thought there was one life, it's not an excuse, right? Like you need to realize that you can still change and you can be better and you can do better things. And there's a bunch of people who never got a degree or failed and still did better than other people and started business without degrees. But I'll get back on point because we're over time now. Long story short, there's somebody who looks at it and says, there's no hope. There's no point. Some people try to reverse it and say, well, since there's no hope, there's no point. I think that every breath is more valuable than those that think that there's an afterlife. I mean, to each their own, right? But I'm just saying there's a lot of people who are out there who are stuck with evolution and do a lot of different things because of what they're taught and how they're guided by it, right? So I just wanted to, kind of talk about evolution today, and hopefully you learned something and learned about having like a universal truth, right? And no problem. I see you. Right. And that, a lot of people are going by this evolutionary mindset, which is very random. And we don't want to be in a domain where we're just running with stuff, but we want to actually find out, is it true? And just because somebody puts it in the textbook doesn't mean it's true. By the way, just because somebody puts it in the Bible doesn't mean it's true either. That's why you're told to study it. Study it to see if everything in this makes sense by the culture that it says. See, it's interesting that the scientist says, believe it because we say that it's fact, even though we can't prove everything, but our theories are better, right? But then I say, well, study this. And they say, you want me to have blind faith? I say, no, I want you to study it by the actual accuracy, right? And using the very acumen. Maybe you can use the acumen, but at least use the actual environment of those that wrote it and use the interpretation that they meant, rather than trying to make it fit what you're saying is there. But that means you would have to deny yourself and your flesh for a second. And for many, that's impossible. That being said, though, thank you all again. We appreciate you. We honor you. Hopefully you got some stuff. We went a bunch of different ways on it. Thank you again for being on. Gonna try and do a makeup for all the stuff that we missed on Tuesday. So kind of just hang around for that. We'll make sure that you have that. Recordings for classes will be up. We'll leave those up for at least another month, like 3 weeks to a month now on there. Thank you guys again. Those who are coming September 29th through October the 6th, feel free to make sure that we get your information. If you're on TikTok, stick around for a little bit. We're going to get ready to do our shout out. If you've never done a shout out before, we'll show you exactly how that works in a second. If you want to learn more about what we do besides just the live sessions, we are on every Rising at 8 a.m. Eastern, New York time, or you can also look for us at 8 p.m. On weeknights. I take Wednesdays off. So Wednesdays I have off, but somebody usually will still come with the word. Yesterday I had a mix up and then had some other stuff I had to take care of and then ended up just out of it. So, we'll get that stuff together, but we look forward to being back in front of you this evening at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time on Kofi_42. So if you're with us on this one on TikTok, just look for number 2 and not 3. But if you're on YouTube, we'll be on YouTube later on this evening. So we thank you, and we appreciate your presence. As always, check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Thank you for the love. Appreciate y'all. And I'm going to go ahead and take my leave. So if you're on TikTok, just stick around for a little bit. We'll do our shout out to everybody else. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, that you are loved, You're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearful and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace. To everybody who's still on TikTok with us, this is how our shout out works. In case you've never done it with us before,